Ched. Hi, Ched. Hi, Ched.
Afternoon, Doc.
Ano?
Hello po. Ang aga ko.
Oh, no,
Disable yung net. Baka mamaya hindi ako makalogin. Kaya nilalogin ko na
actually,
maaga.
yeah, I'm trying to, I'm trying to see if I can kasi ako ang tawag doon, to troubleshoot, ayun. So,
2 o'clock yung start, Doc, na po.
2
2 o'clock naman po.
Kasi, dapat 3. Kasi si Leo, available ng 3. Ang problema ko, suntok sa buwan. Yung aking, no, really, it's like, suntok sa buwan yung mga in-invite ko.
Opo.
Hi, Tan. So, I didn't think that they will actually agree. And they did agree. So I'm like, oh my God. Oo, sa lahat ng binigyan ko ng lahat sila nag-respond, no? Tapos isa lang hindi nagbigay ng ang tawag doon, ng kanyang video. Kasi yung iba, about the time difference, ganyan. So, video na lang ko. And then, nagpadala sila.
So video na lang, Doc, yung play later sa nila, part nila.
So I created like a compilation of videos, ganyan. But then I also gave them the link in case they want to join. And then there's this classmate of mine who was a vet in Jurong Bird Park for the longest time. Then she transferred to Dubai, and now she's in Belgium. And she's still a raptor vet. And she's like, I'm here. So she wants, kaya naisip ni Natal eh. So she's like, sure. So now she sent me a message on FB. Nagpasalamat siya sa link, and then she asks me if she can join on her phone because it's early morning in Belgium. So I go, just come. Alam mo yun? So I'm so happy that she can join. Ayun.
Exciting though.
Diba? Nakakatuwa. So yun. Maloka lang.
So, Doc, 2 po yung start?
2.
Okay. Kasi nalito po yung iba if 3 o'clock.
Hindi, they can come in anytime actually. Yun, they can come in anytime. So, tinitingnan ko lang kung paano ko mag-join nung sa kabilang computer. I did that I emailed myself. So, may strange thing kasi, ayun, join. So, kamusta ang buhay-buhay for now?
Okay naman, Doc. Doc, sabi ko yung thesis ko pala, magko-consult ako sa inyo after na nitong webinar series. Kasi busy pa. Busy pa si Doc. Magko-consult na lang ako after.
Pero hindi ka nag-team, no? Like, you didn't go on the team thesis?
Ako, Doc?
Oo.
Hindi po.
Okay.
Doc, yun pa rin sa amin before ni na Arnel.
Sige.
Kasi Doc, yung problema ko lang sa kanya yung nag-positive na bird. Wala siya masyado pang data, so wala akong mahanap na reference sa kanya. So, no. Paano ko yung gagawin ko?
Pero kasi, yung nag-positive na sa
positive
NP, no?
For blood parasite, Doc.
Blood parasite. Pero
kasi woodpecker. Yung woodpecker, Doc.
Mag-isa lang, di ba? Pwede mo...
Kasi wala pang masyadong data sa kanya. So, wala pa akong makitang reference. Sabi ni Doc Krem, i-identify ko daw muna kung ano yung blood parasite sa kanya. Tapos parang sabi ni Doc, tingin ko hemiproteus yan. Tapos hindi ba namin ma-identify kung ano talaga siyang, kung anong species niya, Doc. Kasi nga sabi ko, Doc, wala pa masyado reference.
Yeah, pero kasi woodpecker eh. Pero tanungin mo si Doc Monica.
Okay po.
I'm wondering, like if I can join my own Zoom meeting.
Dok, pwede, ang alam ko. Kahit same email.
I know, pero yun nga, parang, sige, isa-sign in ko na lang siya. Tapos, start or join. Kasi, ayun, join. Ay! Okay. Kasi kailangan kong i-share yung isang screen ko. I'm like, one-man webinar team, ganyan. Ito yung isa kong camera, oh. Continue. So, dalawa, hi. Ganyan. So, ito, pagpupurahin ko. There. And then, I'm gonna share this screen. Ayun. Ang question ay, ito muna. Yan. Okay. So, yan yung makikita nyo. Yabang. Oh my goodness, it's so pixelized. Is it?
Yung ibang picture
Dok.
Oh, kasi green up lang yun eh. As in, like, hindi ako nagpaalam dyan. Lalo na kay Chawapan, hindi ako nagpaalam sa kanya na i-grab ko yan. Katya. Anyway. Ay, magkaiba yung quality dito sa large screen sa small screen. Actually, okay, 10 minutes. Mag-start tayo in 10 minutes. Kasi I forwarded the link to all my vet friends that I invited. And I told them they can come in anytime. So it's actually going to be like the 10 questions that we asked. And then I'm going to show like the recordings of the answers. Huwag kayo masyadong so-shock dun sa iba kasi medyo in-effort talaga ni Chris Torns, yung daddy ni Gorby, yung video niya. So, yon. So, Ched, nandun ka sa movie na ginawa ko. Yung iba hindi. Ayun. So, 10 o'clock, ipapakita ko yung slideshow. And then, yun, basta yun. I have it all in my mind. Kailangan ko lang ayusin. Yun.
Hello, Doc. Ayan, disconnect ako.
Ha?
Nadi-disconnect ako, Doc. Nagzo-zoom kasi yung kapatid ko din. Oh my God.
Okay lang.
Hindi ako makapag-on.
Oo nga, alam nyo, every time I hear someone disconnecting, I feel sad. Parang sa loob ko, yung loob ko. So, yeah, I feel sad. Kaya, yun. Actually, this is like, I invited a lot of people because I felt that it was like a long shot, yung invitation. Because some of them are actually like big-time people, no? Kaya nung sinabi ni Deng on the groups na i-invite natin si Nielsen, minessage ko siya kaagad para may time siyang mag-isip. Kasi ilan ba tayo? Konti pa lang tayo. Kasi kinukupal ko yun. Anyway, nagpa-unlock naman siya. So he said he's coming. He said, papatayin ko muna yung ang ingay ng messenger. Ayan, so I invited a couple of people. So, and I didn't expect them to say yes, but they did. So, yun. Yung long shot na sinasabi ko is like the executive director of the European Wild Association of Zoo and Wildlife Vets. And she sent in a video answers. No? She sent in recorded answers to our questions. So, the best talaga siya. So, yun. I'll probably tell you a little about them as, pag kompleto na yung mga tao. So some of these people are long-time friends and some of them are former students of mine. So, yun. Kaya parang ano to guys, anong tawag doon? Kusang loob nila tong hinandog. Ganyan. Hindi na kailangan i-twist ang arm. I'm so happy about it. So I get, nakakahilo na, no? Stop share ko, no? Kaloka. Ayan. Bukas pala yung camera ko. Ayan. So, yun. Let's see. Ang sabi ko kasi kila Leo, when they come in, I'm going to make them go, hi! Yes, please. Go, record. Si Ma'am Junel. Ma'am Junel, you can record, but 5 minutes pa. Ma'am Junel is here as well.
Good afternoon po.
Hello. I will show you, oh my gosh, I'll show you my PowerPoint presentation. Ang yabang ko. Wait lang, natatawa
Excited ako.
One woman team died. Diba? Okay, let's see. Where's my photos? There we go. I'll share this.
Doc, parang kailangan mo ata akong gawing co-host para makapag-record.
Ay, ganon. Wait lang tayo.
Okay.
Wait sa.
Thank you so much.
Anisha.
Ayan, para ma-record ko yan ah.
Ano yan? Sige, wait, Ma'am Junel.
Ayan.
Spotlight. Make host. Ay, hindi. Make host. Okay, meron lang tayong, we'll have a few reminders, no? Kasi, like, one of the vets that I invited, hindi siya nagpaalam sa organization niya na nasa sali siya dito. And he's currently at work, so he's like, basta hindi mo babanggitin yung workplace ko. So hindi ko binanggit yung workplace ko, but also like, I'm going to make the recording of this conversation available for you, but you may never share it with others. No, it should remain in our class. Okay? Sige. Okay. I will start in 5 minutes. Let's wait for the others. Like if people are, gusto ko ito yung pinaka laid back na class. Kasi ganun ako. Bugoy kasi ako Peeps eh. So ayoko, yeah. Uy, sandali. Pia, si Pia. Pia, pasok na. Sabihin ko sa kanya, mag-zoom. Mag-zoom ka na. Okay. So, online na siya. Pwede na siyang mag-zoom. Later off ko. Okay. Wait lang ah. May 5 minutes. Let's wait. Watch me. Try not to be distracted with you. Need mo help? Ah, yes, please! Please, ikaw mag-add. Thank you.
Ako na, Doc.
Yay, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Doc, kape tayo.
Oo nga eh. Sabi ko kasi sa kanila, Ma'am Junel, bring their drink.
Oh, okay.
Ice cream ako, Peeps. Ma'am Junel, punta ka dito. May halo-halo kami.
May halo-halo. Kaya pala bumili ako ng ano.
Yun.
Yung juice.
Ako meron na alcohol.
Kaya pala linis dyan.
Uy, hindi. I had to. Look.
Hindi, may alcohol ka kasi, kaya linis.
Well, ang
Disinfected.
alcohol. Akala ko, nag-staging ako ng aking background.
Yun na nga sasabihin ko. Ang ganda naman ng stage.
Hindi kasi, I can't use lecture room 1 because of may reverb eh. Because the room is so big. So, I decided to move everything here. And then, also they're gonna use lecture room 1 to put stuff from LR3 because we're renovating the whole first floor, almost the whole first floor of Tabon.
Mm-hmm.
So, they need a space.
Ba't hindi na nagalaw yung ano mo?
Alin? Tapos slideshow dahil.
Slideshow mo na. Isa pa, please. Ayan.
Yan, RT. Ayan na si Doc Pia.
Ayan. In-admit ko na po.
Pwede siyang gawing pwede siyang gawing co-host actually kung kaya.
Ikaw yun, Doc. Ikaw ang gumagawa
Ay,
ng
ako lang
co-host.
ba?
Oo.
Si Maria. Yun. Guest lang siya. Ayun, may co-host. Ayan. Hi, Doc Pia! Are you there? Para tayo siyans eh. No? Magparamdam ka. Ganyan. Andyan ka ba? Andyan ka na? So, hanapin kita. Where are you? Ang hirap kaya, like, if you have several, it helps if you have several monitors. Pia. Sophia T. Ayan. Okay, co-host ka na. Doc Pia, mag-hi ka naman. Ask to unmute Doc Pia. Can you see? Can you see us? Ay, ayun! Hi! Ano ka ba? Presentable ka?
Doc. Presentable.
Yay! Okay, 2 o'clock. Let's start. For some reminders, I'll just also would like to thank the friends. May advisory po tayo, so we would like to ask permission to take screenshots of the different parts of this event. So, ang ano ko lang, if you don't agree, please i-off nyo yung camera nyo. Pag sasabihin ko na screenshot, then turn off your camera. Para later, when we post it online, naka-blur yung names nyo, tsaka yung profile nyo. Okay? Can I see a thumbs up? If you understand. Great. 27 pa lang Ganun pala yun. Okay. I'm still also learning the rudiments of doing these webinars. Okay. So, yay! So, Doc Leo's here. We can admit him. And when he's here, Leo. May co-host. Hi, Doc Leo. Aga natin Sabi mo 3 ka.
Yun. Hindi.
Hi!
Yung dapat na i-meet ko, minove to 3:30. So baka mamayang 3 aalis ako.
Balik ka na lang.
Yeah, oo.
Wait, yung si Ewin kumakain, no? I-highlight tayo natin si Ewin. Hi, Ewin! Okay. So, yes. Si Chris Torno nagpadala ng video na sasagot niya. Sobrang haba.
Start na ba talaga? Start na ba?
No, anyone can come in and, like that.
Pero basically, start na?
Yeah!
Okay, sige.
Okay lang naman. Yun nga, sabi ko, bakit? Anong gagawin mo? Okay lang naman.
May gagawin ako kung hindi pa pumasok lang sa...
Okay lang. So, you can come in later or leave or come in again. Okay lang naman.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to make this as easy as possible. Okay, nasa na ako? Next. Ba't na, Ayun. So here are our guests for today, including those who sent in their videos. So we have Stephanie Sanderson. She was really a long shot. Like, I did not expect her to send in her answers because she's the executive director of the European Association of Zoos and Wildlife Vets. So I've known her since I started practicing. She helped me a lot with with the cats, yung leopard cats. When we were having problems with the leopard cats, she sent medicines for us to be able to manage the leopard cats. Yun. And then, what else? Yun. Leo, minute kita. Okay. And then we have Chawapan Yin Harming Mongkol. He's the owner of Animal Space Hospital in Thailand. I actually met him in one of the reptile workshops that we did. And thank you, Ma'am Janelle. Ayan. So we got in touch still, and then if I have like issues with certain animals that I don't have any experience with, I asked him, and then he asked me questions also for animals that he hasn't encountered yet, things like that. Because even if there are a lot of people working with exotics in Thailand, there's also still very active wildlife trade, and sometimes our animals end up there. Wait lang Ako sasagot nun eh. Wala si Ma'am Olive. Sasagutin ko ba? No, I won't because this is my class. Okay, next is Sandy Ling Chu. She's a Malaysian vet. She worked with the Sepilok Rescue Center in Borneo. And she spent a lot of time here in the Philippines because she's my advisee for her master in veterinary medicine. And she works with cetaceans, no? So her thesis was about stranding successes. So she analyzed the stranding response that we did in the Philippines. No? And then there's Dr. Anna Lascano. Doc Anna is like a legend for us because she works with the Philippine Eagle Center. No? And she's one of those who has this really big heart, you know, for vet med, no? And for wildlife. So in the picture, she's holding one of the eagles that they were about to release. No? Philippine eagle yung hawak nila. Next is Dr. Gideon Salcedo. He's a vet, a very young vet from the Davao Crocodile Park. Yun. I met him 2 years ago when I talked at a vet conference there. And then next is Dr. Cherisa Garcia, or Che. Some of you might know her because she's a Rhodean. She works at Goje SeaWorld. So she sent in some answers to our questions. She's a former student and yeah, she was a former small animal practitioner. And then one time, she sent me a message out of the blue asking if I know anything regarding, you know, opening in wildlife. And then she goes. And then I went, andito si Leo. So I introduced them and she got a job with Ocean Adventure. And then there's Christopher Torno. Ay, dalawa picture mo, Pia, kasi wala pa akong authorization na mang-hack ng Facebook account ni Dayang. Okay. So, Christopher Torno, aquatic mammal vet siya. He's the first vet in Ocean Adventure. Now he's somewhere else in the continent. Yun. And then Nielsen, dahil sabi ni Deng, imbitahan ko raw siya. So, inimbitahan ko siya. Darating siya maya-maya. Sabi niya, or i-message ko na, Nielsen, tara na. Wala pa siya eh. And then there's Leo, nag-off-cam. Ay, nakita niyo na naman siya. And then Monica. Monica was my former advisee. She's now working at the Larak Foundation in Negros Occidental, working with a very, very important Big Five, no, tawag natin, sa Central Philippines. So she works a lot with endangered species. Then there's Dr. Rapisura Liza. She's from, Doc, hindi ko nilagay na taga Davao Occidental ka. So, assistant provincial vet siya sa Davao Occidental. Then there's Doc Pia. Doc Pia, say hi.
Hi.
Yun. Ang cute niya, di ba? Ayan. Doc Pia was my former advisee as well. For those who have been to the rescue center, she used to work at the rescue center. Tama, Doc? Gusto mo, ikaw na magsalita regarding yourself?
Ayan.
Ako
Hello.
na yung sekreto mo na mabulwag ko.
Ayan. Hello, good afternoon. So, ayan, former advisee ako ni Doc. And ayun, I see some familiar faces din dito. So, mga naabutan ko din nung graduate ako. Sorry. Ayun, so I worked at, Win, Susubi, tapos, DMB, and also sa Semirara Island. So, they have some animals there, so may wildlife din sila doon. Then, ayun, so na-try ko din mag-work doon. So, currently, ayun, I am working at Petrol. Ayan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you po, Doc Pia, for agreeing to come to this craziness. That's okay. Ayan. And lastly, si Dr. Magno, Dr. Melodia Magno, she's my batchmate. And she worked a long time in a bird facility in the Philippines. And then after that, she went to Jurong Bird Park to work there. And then to Dubai, I think. And then now she's based in Belgium. Are you here already, Doc Dayang? Dayang, are you here? Wa pa, para tayong si Yansin. Okay, so yun yung ating guests. Next, I think we can start. Again, an advisory. I have to say this many times because people might forget. Okay. So, ano nangyari? Wait lang. Stop share. Nagkamali ako. Okay. Andun na ba who are we? Let's see if ang daming na-cut. So let's start. We have 10 questions actually, and then I made a compilation of all the answers they gave us. And after each question, we can stop the video and ask those who are online with us to answer the same question. Screen share. Wait lang ha, hanapin ko. So one of the questions is why wildlife? Thank you. Hi, Doc Che. Che Garcia. There you go. Hello, Doc Che. Oh my God. Wait lang, guys. Ayan. Okay. Nangyari. I need to share my screen. Nawala. Okay. Hi, Doc Che.
Hello.
Yay! Can you please introduce yourself while I fumble with my other computer?
OMG. Okay. Hello po. My name is Che and I am currently working in Hi, Ian. So I'm currently working in Korea. Sorry, naka-duty po talaga ako ngayon. I have many blood samples today.
Oh. Salamat sa pagpapaunlak, Doc.
Ipa-play
natin yung movie nyo. Kaso sobra si Doc Chris. Ang laki ng video na pinadala niya as usual. So I'm like, sige. Hindi ko alam kung paano aayusin. Yeah. So we'll wait lang bukas na ba yun? Ayun. Okay. Ayun. Okay. Bukas na yung window. Sige. We'll start with the answers of the bit. So the first question. Ayan. Are we ready? 73 participants now. Okay. So let's start. So because Chris made, can you hear? No. Wait lang. Again, stop share. Merong settings to Wait lang. Ayun, share sound. And mais ka. And it's recorded. What happened? Oh, wait lang ah. Walang sound. Wait lang. Stop share natin muna. Share sound. Okay. Try again. Wala. Ito ng sound. Nag-sound siya kanina, Peeps. Promise. I practice this, but it's not happening. Why? Oh, it's not really.
Hey kids, your professor in wildlife medicine sent me a set of 10 questions, which I hope I can answer. I'll try my best. Okay? So, here goes.
Talagang sinama niya yung video na yan, ha?
Actually,
Okay, question number 1. Why did you choose wildlife and exotics? Let me see. I grew up in a farm, basically running around and playing with domestic species as young as 3 years old. And then as I grew older, I've grown interest in non-domestics. I probably started with dragonflies and then my fascination for fish. And then later on, as I grew older, I liked, which I thought were fish, tadpoles, and then seeing them metamorphose into frogs, just develop this interest with non-domestic species. And aside from having pet birds, I was actually interested with wild animals that were free-ranging. I didn't even know the term when I was that age, but I guess there was really no grand plan to have a wildlife career in the future, but maybe I was already envisioning it as a young child, and I never actually knew what a veterinarian was. I just know I wanted to work with animals, and yeah, small decisions as I grew older, having this interest in sciences and biology, and then finding out what veterinary medicine was, and then later on realizing that there is such specialization, and and coupled by the fact that maybe I was subconsciously preparing myself for it, there were opportunities that came along the way, and I just happened to be one of those fortunate enough to get in. And yeah, so here I am. I guess it's just really following your interest and passion is what led me to wildlife and exotics.
So, why did I choose wildlife and exotics? I've always wanted to become a wildlife vet ever since I knew that it was an option as a vet. I think it's just because I watch too much of National Geographic and also Animal Planets, because it is just so exciting and cool to be able to work with so many types of animals, and then to constantly learn new things, experience new things. Nothing will be the same. So there is this ever changing working environment, and that was very, very exciting for me.
Why did you choose wildlife and exotics? Because there are many ways to treat dogs and cats, but less in other species. So I want to be a vet that can treat every species.
I didn't choose to practice in wildlife. Actually, it chose me. I started out in broiler production, then I became a small animal practitioner, and one of my colleagues introduced me to the Philippine Eagle Foundation, and that started me out in my journey in wildlife medicine, specifically in raptor medicine.
The best part of wild animal practice for me is the variety. You never quite know what you're going to get. There's no two cases the same, and it's also the opportunity not just to work with these amazing animals, but also to work alongside other experts, biologists, ecologists, local people, and really understand not just about the disease process in the animal, but how that animal fits into the ecosystem and how it all fits together. It's a really great privilege to be able to work with wildlife.
Good morning, guys. My name is Che, and I get to answer 3 of your questions. So, question number 1 is, why did I choose the wildlife field? And it's because I love the complexity, the variability, and unpredictability that it offers. So, I get to experience treating a baby lizard this size, and on the same day performing ultrasound or collecting blood from a 1 ton whale. So that's how diverse the field is, and if you are up for the challenge, then definitely consider it.
Wait lang. Hello kasi. andyan yung tao yan. Nandito na siya. Tanungin natin si Doc Leo. And yung hindi pa nakasagot sa pingo, si Doc Leo, hindi pa na... Are you there already? What? Yay! Why did you choose the field, dude? Bago natin panoorin magbale si Chris.
Yeah, sorry. May, paulit.
Nakamute ka.
Tanong? Sorry.
Okay, why did you choose wildlife as, practice?
Okay, yeah. Yun, kasi, napaka-formal ng mga nung nasa video. So, bahala sila.
I know, right?
If you want,
Uy, wag ka. Ang ganda-ganda kaya ni Che.
Hindi, sabi ko napaka-formal. Yun sabi ko. Pero anyway, yun. Kasi since bata pa ako, yun nga, nanay ko mahilig bumili ng wild animals, mga exotic animals. So, bata pa lang ako, exposed na ako doon. Tapos, so yung interest ko sa wildlife was siguro nagsimula nung bata pa ako. And then, I think around high school, there's a show sa Discovery Channel. Ang host nun si Jack Hanna, and he's discussing about animals in zoos. and paano yung work ng mga zookeepers, ganyan. So I became very interested, even more interested working with wild animals. And dapat I'm supposed to study zoology sa college, but if zoology ang kukunin kong course, I would have to study in Zamboanga. Siyempre, I want to go to somewhere else sa UP. And the next best thing is yung vet med na. So vet med wala sa Zamboanga, so yung kinuha ko. And then from there, I didn't know, mukhang magiging nagkaroon ng parang ibang options. So I was thinking of working with small animal, tapos wildlife uli, tapos naging dairy, and then back to wildlife. And then from there, dire-diretong wildlife na.
Si Pia. Dear, are you there? Marati tayo patay sa no?
Dalawang bata. Doc, nung college, talaga siya, parang wala talaga siya sa isip ko. Tapos, ayun, nung senior year, ayun, so natanong ko nga kayo, Doc, kung yung externship sa Ocean Ad. So, ayun, in a way, siguro, ko na din sa'yo, sa kay Doc Leo, sa kay Doc Tony, yung interest ko, yung nagdum yung interest na pumasok ng wildlife, especially sa yung rescue and rehabilitation. So, ayun, from there, ayun, hanggang graduate. So, yung hinanap ko na doon ako nag-start. So, nag-start ako sa wing kung saan din ako nag-intern noon. Then, eventually, napunta ako sa DND, so government work sa pagtuturo din ng mga students. And yun, anto sa Semirara, which is yung sa pagko-conserve talaga ng mga hayop. Ayun. And yun, gusto ko yung challenge na medyo kasi sa yung challenge na iba-ibang hayop yung ka-handle mo. So, kailangan mo ng iba-ibang ways to work around that animal, kung paano mo siya kukunan dugo o paano mo siya yung husbandry niya. So, marami talaga ako natutunan doon. And yun, masaya siya. Yun. So, kung gusto nyo, masaya talaga siya.
Thank you. Yeah, si Doc Nielsen. So he has to do 2 quick surgeries now. So he'll be with us in a bit. Okay. Let's share. The next question is andun na si Ay, sorry.
Was gender ever an issue in practicing wildlife? As far as I can remember, no. I've worked in wildlife medicine for several years now and in different places, in different continents. I've never really had to, I've never really experienced gender being an issue when it comes to practicing veterinarians. No.
Gender has never been an issue in practicing wildlife medicine for me. In the UK, most vets are female anyway, and I think that everybody is used to having both male and female vets, so that hasn't been a problem at all.
Was gender an issue in practicing wildlife medicine? Yes, women in the wildlife practice, because you didn't know where you are working and who you are working with. Sometimes or some situations are risk for sexual harassment. But if you work in the private zoo or exotic pet hospital, I think it's no problem.
So is gender an issue? This question really got my interest because years ago, before I got into my first job, I believe there is an issue with gender. So But it was very lucky for me to have met Dr. Sugio from the Nagurang Field Center, and he said to me, he don't think it is an issue at all because he has met many female vets who are great veterinarians in wildlife. So because of what he said, I went for my interview with the Wildlife Rescue Unit, and I just be myself during the interview. And even though there were only 2 vacancies that were promised, that were advertised, and there were 3 applicants, 2 of them were male, 1 was me. So all 3 of us were accepted for probation, and I managed to get a job after 3 months.
For me, gender has never been an issue in practicing wildlife medicine. Anyone can do it. If you have the heart, the passion, and the perseverance, you can do almost anything.
Wait. Okay. Ganyan. Okay. Stop share. Nagulat ako sa answers nila actually. Kasi, yun nga. I wanted to see that kind of perspective. Kasi, basta, dahil kay Ewin. And then, naalala ko kasi yung mga, naalala ko yung, like, for the past weeks, we have been doing this webinars, right? And then, like, I'd get messages from him. And then, sasabihin niya, grabe doc, misappropriation, o kaya, grabe ang ano naman, o sobrang sensitive lang ni Erin. Joke lang, please. Pero like for me, it was a big issue when I was starting. I don't know, maybe because it was not that kind of time. Makain ka na naman. Sabi ko nga magdala ng snacks. Ayun. So, and there were times when I had to use my being a woman to get men working. Yeah, parang there were times when I had to shame them into getting to work, going to work. So I think it has a lot to do with your environment and yung kultura, the culture of where you're working, I think. So in my case, I worked in Bacolod, and during that time, they were surprised that I can drive a truck, or like I can build an enclosure. So it was a bit of an issue. There were times when you get harassed as well by like when I need to talk to people who can support conservation work, kasi nangingi kang pera parang gano'n. So you're asking for support, ganyan, and then may mga hawak, may mga ganyan. So it was, like for me, it was, obviously, may issue siya. But in terms of work, if you can do it, there is actually no, I feel like wildlife is a more, is a safer space in terms of, working environments. Basta wala lang yung, sa tingin ko kasi politicians sila. Pero parang ganon. Basta wala lang yon, yung outside factors na yon. But like, if you have the heart for it, and if you have the capacity to do the job, then there's really no problem whether what your gender is in wildlife. Yun lang. Doc Pia, may naging issues ka ba in your workplace?
Doc, ayun, in finding work, Doc, hindi issue yung pagiging female. So, pero ang issue pagdating nga din sa workplace is yung sa culture nila on how they see kung na babae yung yung babae yung nag-uutos, babae yung nagmamanage. So, pero you get to, parang naiisip mo rin naman, kumbaga ganun, na parang sinalaunan, parang you have to earn their respect. Which is, ayun. Minsan kasi, ayun, kasi babae, bakit parang ganyan. Pero, in general naman, Doc, parang, ano na rin, okay, nagiging okay na sa ngayon. Kasi mas bata din na rin yung mga keepers, yung mga ganon. Yun lang.
Okay, thank you. Doc Leo, may masasabi ka?
Yeah, for me, wala naman akong na-experience. Although may mga narinig ako na from colleagues na medyo nahirapan. But I don't think it is because they are women. But I think it's more of the personality. Kasi I think yung workplace tends to be parang parang sometimes pwedeng seniority comes, which I think hindi lang naman sa sa wildlife practice. I think it's anywhere. It's pag they will see kung kakayanin pa nila. So if you have a strong personality, whether you are a male or a female, it doesn't matter. So yun, I think it's how you carry yourself, whether you are a male or a female. It doesn't matter. So if kahit na lalaki ka, pero yung ang impression nila sa iyo ay kaya ka nilang hindi sundan or pwede ka nilang parang ignore sa mga instructions mo, then they will do it. So yun, I think it's more of personality rather than the gender.
Thank you. Any thoughts from students? Wala raw. Okay. Ewan, ikaw yung cue ko Okay.
Okay, here's a good one. Please describe your first wild animal veterinary case. My first case as a professional was a Philippine eagle, and it had an amputated leg, because it was caught in a trap, a snare, somewhere in the Sierra Madres, and it wasn't found until days later. I think the trap was intended for deer. Apparently, it was the eagle that was caught, and because it has been strangulated for some time, the leg was gangrenous, and it was a really, really sad experience because the animal was wasting slowly. In fact, it died probably not only of septicemia, ascending infection from the leg. It's probably also because it received massive doses of antibiotics, and there was just, the liver was actually, and kidneys were gone. And it's just sad because this animal is a free-ranging Philippine eagle of all species, and losing an animal not just because it had an attachment with you already. It was the Philippine eagle, and you know how rare these animals are, and just losing an individual really takes so much from you. Yeah, that was my first case.
So my first wildlife veterinary case is an escaped sun bear. So it was a very smart sun bear. So it found out that there was a connecting branch from within the enclosure to outside the enclosure. So it escaped from there. So my first few days as a veterinarian was basically to hike and look for the bears, though we didn't really find it. The bear actually came back by itself because there was food offered by the keepers at the enclosure. So I think it is a very good example of sometimes you don't really need medical intervention for all cases, but just good husbandry and understanding of the animal behavior.
Whilst working at Chester Zoo, my very first wild animal veterinary case was an elephant that had an abscess on its leg. I was given some antibiotics to give to the elephant and told to go treat it. I'd never been near an elephant, let alone treated one before. But fortunately, the keepers were all very helpful and allowed me to administer the antibiotics and treat the wound effectively and safely. But it was a little bit scary for my first case.
Wait. Hello, kasi pag ako sa kanya. Hindi, ano yun, parang sabi kasi niya, I have creative license, sige go lang. Ganyan talaga si Chris no? Buti na lang malumanay si Gordy. Di ba, Chris? Nandiyan siya eh. Pero baka nasa trabaho siya. Yan, masanay na kayo sa kanya. Ganyan talaga. The first time, actually, I knew of him before. Kasi mas matanda yan sa amin lahat. Okay na kita, Chris. The first time I met him, he was wearing red Speedos. Alam niyo yung ginagamit ng muscle men? Yes! Ayan. Nag-chat daw siya. Wild bets should be wild. And that's the first time I met Chris. Ayan. Saya. Chris, are you playing hooky in your workplace? Ayan, may chat dito, no, si Edith. Sabi niya, maybe the issue about gender-based issues like in Bacolod and even on Negros Island could stem from the culture of patriarchal system. Actually, may point siya doon eh. Kasi, gano'n. And maybe because I came from Luzon, and then I don't know for the students who are from Negros, I don't know if you can clarify things. No? Because it was the first time I lived somewhere outside Luzon. And the way I was raised was so different from the way they raised their girls there. So, na-shock din talaga na very beholden yung mga tao sa mga boss. Blood work? Ano, Chris? Chat niya blood work? Anong blood work? Please elaborate. Hindi ka pwede magsalita. Ay, huwag ka magsalita kasi mahaba ka magkwento. Mamaya na. Okay, first case. I think some of you already know what my first case is. So, sailfin lizard, bangas-bangas with rostral trauma. And it was so embarrassing for me. Not playing, so Chris isn't playing hooky, he's doing blood work. Okay, thank you for clarifying. Ayun, so yeah, my first case was I was a newly licensed vet, went into the conservation center, and this biologist from Spain showed me a sailfin lizard, which I have never seen before in my life. Sabi niya, but you're Filipino. And I also, is that an iguana? Hindi ko sinabi yun. Alam ko hindi siya, I know that it wasn't an iguana, but it was so embarrassing because it was a Philippine animal. A Philippine endemic. And he's like, parang, I felt like he was shaming me into, because I did not know the species or did not know that it occurred in the country. So, but what he did was actually push me to learn. So I read up on what the animal was, what the problems were, etc. And so, of course, rostral trauma is management related. So after I found that out, we made changes in the enclosure, treated the animal, wound healing, put the animal in a place where it won't be disturbed as much. And then they eventually were healed. We designed a new enclosure. By the time Leo came in, nag-breed na sila. Si Ina at si Ama. So actually, there were 2 vets after me, and then Leo took over the job that I used to do. Yun. So, sa lahat ng guests natin, sila yung pinakamatagal ko nakatrabaho. Yun. Tama? Leo, first case. Order. Wala pa si Leo. Pia, first case.
Hindi, sige. Ako na.
Yes,
Muna.
Leo. Yay!
Yan. Kasi
Sa
may lakad
Philippines
ako eh.
ka?
Hindi, naglalakad ako sa Pandalag.
Bumas ka?
May pupuntahan na ako. Oo. First, wala akong matandaan na first case. As in first
Yung
case.
marinig.
Hello? Okay na?
Naririnig niyo siya?
Wait,
Ba't ako hindi ko siya marinig? Naririnig ka naman nila eh. So, okay na.
Better? Better?
Ayan, okay.
Okay. Wala akong matandaan na, na specific case. Pero ang natatandaan ko lang is during my internship sa isang zoo, when I was still a student, every afternoon, from 1 to 2 o'clock, our job was to do a necropsy. So, inassign sa amin na from 1 to 2, pipili kayo ng, you do a necropsy of whatever animal you want. Pipili lang kayo sa freezer and then mag-necropsy kayo. So, ang naalala ko lang doon ay it was, for me, parang ang laking, it was a very, very good learning experience for me kasi doon ko natutunan yung anatomy of different species of animals. And then, siyempre, if you're doing necropsy report, you have to know why the animal died. And doon ko na-realize how management is very important kasi karamihan doon sa mga namatay. Ako mismo, hindi pa, estudyante pala ako noon, ay nakita ko na agad na it seems like it's because of mismanagement of the animals. Kaya namatay yung mga animals na yun. So yun, doon ako nakapag-necropsy from small birds. Bibigyan kami ng birds ng 20 pieces of finches. All died overnight, freshly dead. Binigay sa akin and I have to determine bakit namatay. And I found out na all of them had hematoma dito sa skull nila. And doon ko nalaman, they died of trauma. And the question is, bakit sila namatay? And I had to investigate why. And it was actually very interesting time for me doing those necropsies. Pero at the same time, yun nga nakakalungkot kasi I was saying, bakit ganito kadaming animals ang patay? Bakit? So doon ko na-realize talaga na management of wild animals is very, very important or else you will end up having so many mortalities.
Thank you, Doc Leo. Hi, Doc Monica. So, Doc Monica is here from Negros, Negros Island. We're talking about our first case, wildlife case. Do you want to talk about yours? Ayan.
Okay na. Hello.
Yes.
First wildlife case na ba, Doc, yung pinag-uusapan? First wildlife case dito sa Negros Forest is yung Visayan leopard cat. Rescued Visayan leopard cat. Ano pa lang siya? Estimated ko noon is around 6 weeks old yung leopard cat. And then, ang pinaka-inaalala ko noon, kasi relatively healthy naman siya. Apparently healthy, ganyan. So, no problems at all. Pero ang inaalala ko kasi is merong dating outbreak ng feline panleukopenia dito sa Negros Forest. Yun agad kasi, parang tinanong ko agad nung pagkarating ko dito kung ano yung mga previous diseases na naranasan nila. And then, ayun nga, isa yung feline panleukopenia. because of stray cats within the city. So, ayun. So, first priority is to vaccinate the cat. And then, ayun, tinignan lang muna namin kung yung sa deworming, and then after nun, na-vaccinate na. So, subong ngayon, okay na.
Yeah. I'm happy you're learning Ilonggo.
Yes, of course, Doc. Kasi 1 year na ako dito, dapat kabalo na.
Kabalo na. Yun. So, actually, si Doc Leo and I work in the facility where Doc Monica is currently working. Yun. So, parang chain kami. Ako muna, tapos may dalawang vet. Tapos si Doc Leo, and then another vet, and then Doc Monica. Para kami nang simula ni Doc Monica. Pero parang nakakatuwa kasi during my time, we were just dreaming of what Doc Monica is now doing. We were still in the stage where we were just breeding animals so that in the future we can release them. And Doc Monica is already at that place where they already did soft releases, into like semi-captive environment. But then we had to stop. Kasi nga, because of ASF, because they're working with the critically endangered pigs. Meron na sa Mindanao, Doc. Yeah. Yun. Doc Pia, first case mo?
First case, Doc, long-tailed macaque. So, juvenile long-tailed macaque. So, nakita siya so may citizen na nagdala. Then, meron siyang yung silo. Snare. So, meron siyang snare sa kanang kamay niya. Then, nabubulok na yung kanang kamay niya. So, we had to amputate. And, ayun, it was my first time doing surgery noon. So, it was a fairly simple surgery. Pero, nung time na yun, stress ako. Kasi yun yung first time kong as in surgery na wala akong ibang kasama. Tapos, yun, first time din humawak ng macaque. And yun, and so i-amputate namin, and eventually, gumaling din naman siya, and natutunan niya rin mabuhay ng gamit yung isa niyang kamay. And then, dun ko din na-realize na sobrang, na yung healing capabilities ng mga long-tailed macaque is, ang bilis lang nila mag-heal. And yun po, yun yung kaya aking first aid.
Thank you. Doc Che. Nag-work pa. Okay. Wala kang chat si Chris. Sige. Punta tayo sa kanya. I-share ko ulit yung kanyang. Tingnan natin kung malalampasan natin yung mga funniest moments.
Your funniest encounter with a wild animal. I have many funny experience. I don't even remember which one is the funniest, but I do remember one that's really funny, like several weeks ago, wherein because I'm not an animal trainer, so sometimes I just give some hand signals randomly, without any standard, or they're not really the genuine hand signals of the trainers. But apparently the dolphin picked it up and was sort of confused, and we ended up me giving random hand signals and the dolphin trying to understand what it is. So we ended up me giving signals with no meaning at all, and the dolphin pretending to know what it means. So it just gave me random reactions, random behaviors that weren't even part of its training, and we ended up dancing. So, but from a distance, trainers were watching and they could see, what the the hell are they doing? Well, it was an interaction that's totally unscripted, and it was just funny and fun at the same time. And that's the video that you just saw me giving the dolphin a hard time.
So the funniest encounter I've had with a wild animal is Juria, the orangutan. He's semi-wild actually because he was a rehabilitated orangutan. So he was already released, but he still roamed close to the rehabilitation center. So what happened was that I was trying to sedate another orangutan, and he was nearby. I tried to ignore him, but he got very, very interested with what I was doing, and he took away my spectacle, and he bent it and returned it to me. So I got my spectacle broken by an orangutan during my work, and of course I couldn't sedate the orangutan that I was supposed to sedate after that. So the lesson of the story: please wear contact lens when you work with orangutans.
Same time, and that's.
Okay. Leo?
Yun, nag-subscribe na ako.
Sa kotse. Okay, go!
Basically, yung takot ko dun sa probably the Parpanyes, pero same time. Para I have to.
Copy ka.
Dati pa ako nun.
Oh, copy ka.
Balik
Mon? Si Mon muna, Leo. Nag-freeze ka eh.
Funny encounters. Actually, marami na. Pero, recently, merong isa na we were in one of our release sites in Negros Oriental sa Bayawan City. We have the Badlitan or the Negros Bleeding Heart. Well, they are not released yet, but we are planning to release them in Bayawan. And anyway, we heard a call of the Bleeding Heart. So they have distinct calls. I'm sure Doc M is very familiar with their call. And we heard them not in the enclosures of these Bleeding Hearts, but near it, very near the enclosure. So we thought we were bringing these animals there, and maybe they're coming out because recently also one of the workers at the reserve also saw a terrific hornbill naman near their home. So we search and search for this call, and until we saw a certain bird high up in the trees, and it was just a kukal. So we thought it was a Negros Bleeding Heart, but it was imitating its call, and it was a kukal.
Corny bird, no?
Yeah. Yun.
Corny bird. Pag kami, like when we do bird watching, so I go with my students, and then, syempre, with binoculars. I don't know if some of you went with bird watching before the lockdown. But I used to tell students that if they see Eurasian tree sparrow, corny bird yan. So one time, one of the students pointed out, what about that? And it was a Eurasian tree sparrow. And I said, corny bird. And she started writing notes. Doc, what's the spelling? And I go, no, it's a bird that's so corny because it occurs. It's not even endemic. Ganyan. So I had to explain. Horny bird yan. Sometimes they even say, horny bird? Ganyan. Pero, ayun. Maraming nakakatawa, maraming nakakatakot. I mean, there are a lot of experiences that are actually scary when you think about it. Like, doing field work, and then say in the mountains where there are palm trees, the palms kind of rot from inside, and you're left with holes in the mountain. So there are holes in the ground, and my feet are tiny. So sometimes when we go trekking, my feet fit into these holes, and you end up getting, with your face on the ground because you couldn't move your step forward because your feet are trapped. But it's actually a scary thing to happen because if you have enough force, then you would dislocate your knee. So, mga ganun. Dapat pala yun yung sa next question. But yeah, I mean, later you kind of laugh about it. Or finding yourself sliding down a ravine, tapos natatawa ka na lang because, wala ka nang mahawakan eh. or hanap ka nang hawakan mo, tapos vine pala na manifest, tapos naputol din. Naalala ko yung mga cartoons, alam mo yun? So things like that. At the moment that it's happening, it's not funny, but later on you can laugh about it. Yun. So one time, also, I was doing a necropsy for, ayan na si Nielsen, pa-admit na natin. Baka may share siyang pictures. Hi, Nielsen. Nielsen. Hi, you're there. Okay. Hi, we're talking about funny moments in the practice. I was just about to tell them about the necropsy that I was doing. I was gonna do a necropsy on, naalala mo si Basco? Like the first Visayan Wartic pig that ever produced progeny, no? So si Basco,
in
Negros. So he died of pneumonia. So in order to find out the cause of death, syempre necropsy ka, no? And I was really, like, Basco is like, he was really close to me. Like, kulang na lang pet ko siya, ganyan. So whenever I approach the enclosure, I'd call him and he'd show his belly for a belly rub. No? Imagine this, he's like 70 kilos na warty pig. And they're huge, right? But he's such a sweetie. So one of the encounters I had with him, apart from the ones that I talk about, during your third year proper clinics, is that when he died, I was going to do necropsy, and I was very professional. Really, my face straight, and really no emotion. When I was about to cut his skin up, one of the keepers ran his hand on Bascog and said, "Bascog, I couldn't cut him." I was like, "Why, Bascog? What did you?" Really, really crying my heart out. And parang at one part of me, parang you have to be, like I have to be professional. But on the other hand, parang I just wanted to release the emotion kasi sobra siyang nakakaiyak din siya. And then you have to do all that, the necropsy and everything. So, yeah. At the end, we laughed about it. Me trying to be a professional, but also, acknowledging the connect, or, the bond that you shared with that specific animal. Because they're, like, for us, Bascog is a very, very special animal. So, yung ganun. Mga misadventures. And then Bascog was actually the one that attacked me. Because we made the mistake of entering the enclosure without anything in our hand but a camera. And he was so intimidated by the camera, he went straight to me because I was his friend. And he sought comfort, so he moved his head like this between my legs, man. So his tusks were scraping my legs. And I came out of the enclosure bloodied and laughing because we were so stupid. I mean, the day before, we were telling the keepers, do not trust them. And here I was entering the enclosure without anything and getting attacked by a friendly warty pig, no? So yeah, I came in wearing pants, went out, naka-shorts na ako dahil sa attack, no? So yun. O, tapos na ako si Nielsen naman.
Ako na kagad?
Wala pang warm-up. Surgery mo, pre.
Well, that surgery was... well, I have a trivia for you.
Oh, go.
You know, like most of us wildlife practitioners, exotic practitioners, siguro most students will ask us, what animal are you most afraid of? Parang they'll think there's one predator na takot ka. Pero the most na parang ayoko na i-handle na animal is actually itong mice. So in born they asked that also to me. Doc, what's the most feared animal that you consider? Like, oh, ayoko ng mga punk rat. What's a punk rat? Pangkanal na rat. So, through the years, biglang they assigned me to India, and one of my assignments was to go to a rat temple. So, oh my God, you know, talagang 2 months before, talagang sinasay ko na yung sarili ko dahil nakakadiri talaga yung mga daga, you know, and sabi ko, pagdating ko doon, di bale, mag-shoes ako or magme-medyas. When we went to the temple, bawal mag-medyas. Kailangan mo magpaa. And there were thousands of rats inside the temple. So, you know, compose, sinasay ko yung sarili ko. Until nung nandun na kami sa loob, blah, 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 blah. Tapos biglang may gumapang na daga doon sa paa ko. Tumili si Doc Nielsen doon. Oo, ang sama ng tingin nila sa akin. But that's not the funniest wildlife encounter. Pasakali pa lang yon. Si M lang ang nakakaalam kung ano yung funniest aking wildlife. Si M lang kasi in-email ko sa kanya.
Actually, gusto mo i-out kita? Joke lang. Ikaw na! Andyan ka na! Ikwento mo na!
Something like, something like 15 years ago, when I'm one of the consultants of Avilon Zoo for mga critical cases, like we did a crowning of the fractured canine. Tapos one time si Mr. Gao, meron siyang orangutan, ang pangalan si Joey. Itong si Joey had a problem with the molar. So we needed to sedate him. But you know, listening to lectures, targeting yung ita-target train mo sila para hindi mo sila stress. Sabi ni Mr. Gao, itong si Joey fixated sa nipples. Gusto niya mag-touch ng nipples. So ganon, sabi ko. Ganito na yung uniform ko. So I have a button and then linabas ko yung nipple ko. Tapos nag-point si Joey, pinopoint niya yung ganon. Pag pinopoint niya, sabi ko, tuk! Tapos dinidesensitize ko siya ng syringe na may cover pa. So para, you know, paulit-ulit kong ginaganon. But while ginaganon ko yon, yung mga zookeeper, yung assistant ko, natatawa because, you know, I was exposing my nipple kasi, you know, talagang if there was a CCTV or a video capturing that moment, parang nakakahiya, di ba? Nakakahiya. But I had to sacrifice and eventually, nung nasanay na siya, tinanggal ko na yung cup ng needle and then binigay ko na yung shot intramuscularly to Joey. You know, with macaques, that's so easy. You know, you can put the food on your hand and then you can catch their hand. But no way, this is a male matured orangutan. Pag ginawa mo yon, there's no way you can handle it. So for me, that's the funniest naluhas yan. That was the funniest practice that I've ever done, you know, using my body part to lure an orangutan.
ang laswa mo talaga kasi.
Leo, kaya Leo, ha? Nandyan ba si Leo?
Wala, and then nakat siya, nagde-drive siya kanina. So, andito si Gideon. Hi!
Yep, I'm here.
Ay, ayan, Leo! Hi! You're back. We were talking about the funniest...
Yun, Leo!
Yeah. Actually, yung funniest is also my area.
Parang ganyan, no?
Bakit walang English?
Nagka-cut ka, Leo. Copy.
Oh, nandyan pa lang aking biggest basher, si Chris Torno.
Kaya, mga Peeps!
Oo.
Sabi ko, walang mag-aaway.
Sabi niya, Kadmiri, Itisen. Kaya mo.
Sabi ko, walang mag-aaway, ha? Safe space, walang pikon. Guys, ganito lang talaga kami. Sabi ko sa inyo, informal. Leo, choppy ka, bro. Hintayin namin makarating ka sa iyong paroroonan. Choppy. Choppy. Welcome natin si Doc Gideon bago magpakpakan yung dalawa.
Good afternoon, Doc.
Hi, Doc Gideon. How are you?
Hi. Medyo na busy kanina.
Oo, okay lang. So, yan. Sana tayo. Hindi ko alam kung kay Nielsen ako matatawa o kay Kristen. Okay. Gawin. Okay. Sino yung... Okay, i-mute muna kita, Leo, choppy ka. Next. Share tayo ng, Salamat, Chris Torno, sa video. Kasi, tama yung sinabi mo, in-insert ko na lang yung ibang mga videos dun sa ginawa mo. Very good. Good job yan. I love the effort, dude. Okay, next.
For your life. Oh, always. I mean, I deal with aquatic animals. It's the sea, so they're within their turf. So that's their kingdom. That's just their area of dominance. They're big. They have sharp teeth. They can use it. They have strong muscles. They could just push around. Yeah, I always fear for my life practically every time we handle aquatic animals, especially the large ones. But you should. I mean, if these animals have teeth, they will have no hesitation to use them. If they have tail flukes, they will have no hesitation to use them. I'm actually quite relaxed with our animals in the aquarium and in at work, just because they're used to us already. What's scary is when you deal with free-ranging animals. Like before, I used to be part of a manatee rescue program in the US, and my goodness, every time, yeah, that's scary. There was even a time wherein there was an equipment attached to an animal. It's a remote tracking device which contains years of data, and it fell off a manatee, and we had to get it. and nobody wanted to swim in the water to get it because there were, sharks in the area. And yeah, being the newest guy in the group, so sort of like, yeah, I volunteered to swim, so I swam to get that radio tracker. And yeah, in Florida, where we know that there are sharks that can do you damage, yeah, I feared for my life, and I got it. And yeah, for that endeavor, I was given an award at work, which it's not really that big deal of an award, but yeah, I kept it in my shelf, which was very important for me because yeah, it was a chance to shine and be yeah, the guy from the Philippines did it. Yeah, I'm happy.
Was there ever a time I feared for my life? Yeah, several times. I fell down from a steep ravine. I injured my knee. I also injured myself when treating raptors, when I encountered king cobras, and sometimes when you meet not so nice people in my field of work.
So, was there a time I feared for my life? Honestly, many times, especially when I work with the elephants. And but one of it was the closest that I was to having lost my life was during a translocation of the elephant, whereby they were trying to clear the path so that it is easier to transfer the elephants to a lorry. And I was not aware that they were trying to push down a tree, and I walked in front of the tree at the wrong time, and that was the time they were actually pushing down the tree. And when I saw that, I ran and I tripped, and I was super lucky that only the leaves of the tree were on top of me. None of the branches hit me, but everyone thought I was dying, and I really thought I died. I was dying too, but I just got lucky.
I was afraid, then happy.
Okay. Was there a time when you feared for your life? Si Monica?
Nahiya naman ako para kasing wala pa in my one and a half year sa practice. Pero tawag dito, hindi naman kasi ako masyadong matatakotin when it comes to handling the animals here sa forest park. Kasi I have the keepers here na sobrang ine-entrust ko yung kasi parang yung sobrang trustworthy nila when it comes to handling these animals. So hindi ako masyadong natatakot. Pero siguro nung time na we had the animals in outside of captivity, na-reintroduce na sila sa wild. Merong time na ako lang mag-isa, naka-encounter ako ng warty pig. So, ang laki-laki niya. So, mga siguro like 70 kilos. And, meron kasing kwento recently sa reserve na muntikan na silang i-attack ng warty pig because, they equate humans as to having food. So, syempre, yung mga humans na naglalakad doon sa reserve, usually kasi yun yung mga nagbibigay ng food sa meron kasi kaming what we call this, food places, parang mga mini size na food, basta merong nailalagay na food within the reserve. So ayun, nagkaharap kami and parang iisipin ko, tatakbo ba ako? Hindi dapat ako tatakbo. Tinry ko siyang batuhin, and then binato ko siya, akala niya, pagkain yung binato ko. Inamoy lang, inamoy lang niya. So parang, okay, sige, hindi mag-work. So, naging aggressive ako. Parang, nag-clap ako ng hand and then nag-stomp ako ng feet para makita niya na mas dominant ako. So, ayun, lumayo naman siya. Pero, syempre, I have to be more vigilant kasi baka mamaya atakihin pa rin niya ako. Pero yun, hindi ko naman na-feel na yung parang life-threatening, ganyan. So parang as of now, wala pa naman masyadong Kasi I love Morty Pig. So, yun sila yung favorite animal ko. So, ayun.
Totoo. So sweet. Tanungin natin si Doc Gibbs. Doc Gideon. You ask him to unmute. Baka nasa work.
Hello, Doc.
Doc.
Nasa work ako. Sige lang. Doc?
Scariest moment.
Hindi lang ako mag-video, Doc, ha?
Bakit?
Wala lang. Ayoko makita ang mukha ko.
Boli siya. Pumunta na sila. Isa kanini.
Wait.
So si Doc Gideon, he's the vet from Davao Crocodile Park.
Hi.
Nakanan. Yan.
Magmamask lang ako kasi nasa office.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so one of the scariest moments, I guess, sa wildlife practice na experience ko is yung pag-collect namin ng eggs sa crocodiles. Kasi very sketchy yung area, and then most of the breeders is territorial na. So na sandwich kami between two breeder crocodiles, and then nasa gitna yung nest. So namomroblema kami, and then malapit pa sa lagoon yung nest. So hindi namin alam kung ilang crocs ang nandun sa ilalim ng lagoon. So baka mayroong time na bibiglang susulpot lang yung crocodile. So actually many experiences na namin yon throughout, I think, mga almost 3 years ko sa practice. Every time na magko-collect talaga kami ng eggs ng crocodile is very sketchy talaga. So I guess that's one of the scariest things that happened to me during the practice.
Thank you, Doc.
Hey, Doc.
So scary. No, ako rin yung isa sa one of the scariest things for me was a croc den. Ang involved porosus. So there was an enclosure maybe as big as LR1 in Tabon. And there were like 10 crocodiles. And then because they're getting older, no? They came in there as juveniles, but they let them stay in that area as until they became sub-adults. So they started fighting. One of them got injured. I had to take a look. But the facility did not design the pond or the enclosure in a way that will allow someone to isolate an animal. So I had to go in there in the enclosure with 10 crocodiles to isolate one animal and treat it in the same enclosure. So like your back's turned and then like part of you is, you have to have eyes behind your, at the back of your head. And then ang downside was that we only had 3 keepers. Only one was experienced, and I had to choose between the 2 less experienced ones, which one to be with me in the enclosure, and the other one, who would dangle the food in the farthest corner of the enclosure. So all the crocs will go there. We can isolate the one that needed treatment. So yeah. So if you notice, like for the case of Doc Gideon and for my case, I think It has a lot to do with, how you design the enclosure. But like for Doc Gideon kasi, I can imagine the croc will decide where it goes to nest. Diba? So, bahala ka na to find a way how to get to the eggs. So, may ganun. Nielsen, sarap yan. Nakamute ka, pre. Ayan.
Okay. So,
Carry
masarap. Bigay ni Caro. Okay. So, normally, as a wildlife vet, you kind of anticipate what you're facing. Like, if you're going to face a crocodile or a big cat or a venomous snake, you already know how to be careful. It's when you're least, it's when you're very comfortable.
Sa'yo yun?
Sorry.
Okay.
Oo. When you're very comfortable, that's when things can go wrong. Just like my experience in, that was in Mindoro when we were featuring the giant diamondback squid. So we were trying to document them, and I wanted more footage. So using my underwater camera, I dove as the fisherman was bringing up his catch. So nakita ko, no, with the deep blue surrounding, and I see this very red giant squid being pulled up. Kinuhanan ko siya, tapos gusto kong iakyat siya. Pag akyat ko nung ganon, biglang nag-jet yung kanyang siphon, and that pulled me so fast under. So parang, wow, parang I could have caused myself in great danger by, handling a wild animal like that. It wasn't a crocodile, it wasn't a king cobra, it wasn't a big python that I really sat down and, oh my God, that was the scariest thing that I've ever done. So, yun yung giant squid. So, yun, nung inahon siya, ginawa na siyang sashimi.
Oh, gross. Not much.
But that's the real livelihood of the fishermen. They would catch this big giant squid for export. Pero we wanted to document them, how this fisherman would catch them, and they're like 300 feet under, tapos hinuhuli sila.
Ay, meron sinasabi si Torno. Kita mo?
Oo naman. Parati.
Yun na yung scary mo.
Yun ang scary mo.
Pero ang sa akin, mas natatakot ako sa tao eh. Alam mo yun? Well, yung hayop okay lang para sa akin, kasi more or less, mas natatansya ko sila as compared to people. For me, pag pupunta ka sa field, hindi mo alam kung sino nandun eh. NPA, mga samahan ka po ng bodyguard. Yung bodyguard, yun nakakatakot. Para in our case, no? Mamaya na, Torno. Ito. Kasi let's say one time, when we went to, for instance, when we went to do the necropsy of Lolo, pinasamahan kami nung mayor sa bodyguard niya. But we know that it was not just to guard us. It was to prevent the museum from getting the carcass. Which is, gusto kasi nila na sa kanila maiwan. Yung may ganon, doon ako mas natatakot sa mga ganong issues. So, nakita ko na may similarity pala kami ni Doc Ana from Philippine Eagle. Kasi she goes into the field. When you go to the field, sometimes when you go to a protected area, the military will accompany you to give you protection. But then because they are military, if there's an encounter, you might get caught in the crossfire. And there are a lot of conservation workers they've already died. Like si Leonard Ko, ang tagal na, hinihintay 10 years already, waiting for justice for Leonard Ko, for instance. He just studies plants. And he got shot at by the military. So, and they say that he just got caught in a crossfire. So hanggang ngayon, wala pa. Doon ako takot. More than like the animals, okay lang. Kasi maiwasan mo sila eh. Or feeling ko mas predictable sila compared to animals. I mean to human animals. May chat si Chris, oh. Paano yung iniwan kang mag-isang nakaakap sa crocodile? Sabi, wag bibitaw, pero bumitaw. Uy, nangyari sa akin yun, sa Warty Pig. Naiwan ako. Yun yung example ko parati sa mga estudyante. When you meet, you have to know what three means. Kasi di ba, like, okay, i-pin down natin yung hayop, tapos sabi, let go on 3. Ano ba yun? 1, 2, 3, let go? Or 1, 2, 3, let go? Kasi pag nauna yung iba na 1, 2, 2 pa lang, then yung third count, let go sila, may iwan ka talaga eh. So kailangan klaro. Nangyari sa akin yun. Buti na lang sa date. Kung galit yung hayop, wala. Di meron na naman akong panibagong parenthesis sa legs ko. No? Ganyan. Yun. Actually, nakakatakot talaga yun. And one keeper already got injured because of that. Yung example ni Chris. No? Na hindi clear yung communication. So it's really important when handling animals as a team. We need to communicate properly. Ito na naman. Ano ba? Ako tagabasa ng chat nyo? Wiset! You owe me drinks, Peeps. Okay. Kaya binitawan kasi pagkakataon ng kasama na gumante. Uy pag may mga loko to. Okay, moving on. Buti na lang ako moderator. Pwede ko kayo. Sige, moving on. Punta tayo dito. Kasi ang hirap pala mag multiple tasking. So, the next question. Patagalin muna natin tong picture na to. Si Chris Torno yan. Kasi he wanted to send me a profile picture of him na maraming balat ang nakikita. So, yeah. Okay.
Okay, here's something I'd like to really answer. What is the best part of wild animal practice? There's so much that's good. I like necropsies because I like finding out the cause of death, especially of free-ranging animals, because it gives me an insight to how they are in the wild and what the status of the health of the environment is. Like, for example, if I see a lot of garbage in their guts, it means that there's a lot of garbage out there. But the most satisfying thing about wildlife practice is that when you do rescues and then you actually do rehab, and the cherry on top of this would be when you actually are able to restore the animal to its good health and then set it free. And I'm fortunate to have had that experience with different species. I've done that with birds, I've done that with marine mammals, I've done that with rats, cloud rats. And returning the animal to the wild after you have fixed it gives you this very great feeling of accomplishment that you actually made a difference. Yeah, I like that.
So, what?
May question muna si Katya. Sandali Babasahin ko lang, nakalagay, "Hello Doc, regarding safety sa field." Sorry Katya, dinirect message mo pala ako, pero I'm reading it so that everyone who has the same question can learn. Do you have preparations to protect yourself while in the field? Do you bring protective tools and stuff? Anong tools? Barel, ganon? Katya?
Hello po, Doc. Yes
Yeah,
po. Maybe knife or pepper spray or gun?
Wala. No. Juan, do you do that? No, di ba? No. Boots lang. Oo, tama si Chris. Boots. I mean, like, you protect yourself against natural causes. Not, yun nga, kaya mas nakakatakot yung tao. So, don't bring anything like we don't have guns, ganyan. Yung protective gear namin, yung boots na kung kailangan mo mag-gloves, sabi din ni Chris. Syempre long sleeves when you go in the field. Kaso minsan like dito mainit so I don't mind, coming home with scratches. Kung maselan ka tulad ni Torno, mag-long sleeves ka. Ayun, so pag yun sabi din ni Nielsen, pag alam niya na magsalita na lang kasi kayo, ano ba? Yan. So, really important, like, mas iniisip namin yung natural stuff that might happen, like insect bites, snake bites, yun nga, mabulsot, ganon. So, may first aid kit din naman kami nadala. Pero yung guns, no. Yung knife, pang camping, ganyan. Siyempre, depende sa gagawin mo rin. I always bring my handy snake hook just in case. Kasi fun din naman mag-explore ng snakes. Yun. So, bring Nielsen daw! Nielsen, oh! Nielsen!
Bring Nielsen. Ikaw talaga, love na love mo ko talaga, Chris.
May mga
for me,
romansa yan dalawa.
I learned how to be careful because in the show, cargo kanila. So they asked us to always be careful. So yung anti-venin, sila yung may pakana nun. And that's when I realized na we lack anti-venin pala, no? Parang there's always a shortage for anti-venins. And pag nagsushoot kami, kinukuha pa namin yung stock ng RITM, Pero after the shoot, we donate it to the nearest hospital where there's a high population of Philippine cobras. I bring clear tubes so we can demonstrate closely these venomous snakes without being compromised, especially Philippine cobras. They do spit. Itong face shield, mukhang gamit na gamit ngayon to if ever we're going to handle spitting cobras. Sa mga gloves, we invested in these long leather gloves. Hindi pwede yung mga pang welding lang. These are special. Oh my God. Hold on. These are special leather gloves na doble yung layer of leather doon sa mga tips of the fingers. And ano pa ba yung mga snake hooks, snake tongs, yun yung mga dinadala natin just in case we need to handle something that can be a threat to your life. And then meron din akong tranquilizer gun na long range with the darts that can inject the the anesthetic to the animals. Yun.
Ano yan, Ewin? May hirit si Ewin eh. Ano yan? Go, this is a safe space, dude. Okay. Go lang.
Masaya yung darts.
Ang darts, oo.
Sa
Just make sure asintado ka. So si Nielsen parati yan nag-firing range.
Yung meron kang blow dart, saka meron kang tranquilizer gun. So, yung blow dart, parang effective siya pag nasa enclosure. Pero kung nasa open ka, tulad ng isang di ba, nung nagpunta tayo ng Kalawit kasama sila Peeps, sila Cristorno,
Leo.
Yeah, some vets, syempre hindi nila na-experience yun, and we were able to do some training, and nakakatawa dahil si Bo Peep, he's a birdman. When he had the chance to work with terrestrial mammals, parang ang bilis matuto na makapag-blow dart siya. Moving target nung na-hit niya yung Calamian deer, sa men, buksan muna ako ng malamig na beer.
Katayin na natin yung Calamian deer, gano'n. Joke lang. Yeah. That evening, when we were offered an endangered giant clam. Sige.
Oh my God.
Yan. Parang reminiscing eh. Okay, i-continue natin yung actually credits talaga kay Torno to eh. Let's continue the video.
Is the best part of wild animal practice? For me, it is pretty much the same with other vet practices, which is to see the animals that you have been treating get better and get well, and eventually you can release it back to its habitat. I think the satisfaction is really, really great, especially knowing that these wild animals, when they are sick, they are usually very, very sick and very, very close to death. So it must mean that if they made it and, they become fit again, you must have done something quite right that have helped them get better.
What is the best part of wild animal practice? The best part is the opportunity to treat the priceless animal like tiger, hornbill, tapir, pangolin, because there is composition of biodiversity, which is priceless. No one can do, but the wildlife vet can.
Part of wildlife animal practice was when my team was able to rescue Philippine eagles, able to rehab and treat it properly, and the eagles were released back to its natural habitat. I think that's the best part of our practice.
Best part. Andyan ka na, Leo. Wani ka muna. Best part of wildlife practice.
Best part of wild animal practice. I think all the same with like small animal, ganyan. Pero being able to treat and take care of endemic animals, especially nung pagdating ko dito, first time ko din silang nakita. Like, I'm not familiar with them before, but now, everyday ko na sila nakikita. So, it really is, what do you call this, a blessing, an honor to treat them, to take care of them. And also, recently, to be able to have witness of us releasing animals back into the wild, like in a safe space, in a safe and fenced area, in Bayawan, it's really an honor talaga na ma-witness yung yung historic historic nga siya kasi we were able to release the deer and the pigs. So, ayun.
Wala, dream ko yan.
30 years in the making, Doc. I think nag-start sa inyo.
Yeah, it is. Pero, yun nga. Nung time namin, kami yung nagsi-scout nung mga area kung saan pwede release. Yun din yung time na pumunta kami sa Sikogon where, like, we discovered that there was a population of leopard cats there. First island reports. Exciting siya. Nielsen!
Yeah.
It's your chance. Tapos
Yeah.
patayan ko yung chat group na sasabihin ni Cristorno.
No, but I share the same feeling about what's the best moment is when releasing wild endemic animals back into their natural habitat. The late William Oliver, when I asked him, when will these animals be released? And then he said, I'm afraid, they won't be. Parang he believed that there was no chance for at the time he said that. So medyo nalungkot ako. I respect William Oliver, his work so much on those animals, but nung narinig ko na marirelease na siya, parang sobrang tuwang-tuwa ako na na-release finally yung Visayan spotted deer, yung Visayan party hog. So, cheers to that. So, for me, the best part of wildlife practice is when you're presented with a case where, during the times when we were so reluctant in doing some invasive surgeries kasi parang wala tayong alam di ba? Pero now with exposures and other vets who has shared their techniques, and pag nagagawa natin mga Pinoy yon, parang wow, parang this is the start. Just like when Doc Leo and I were in Subic, there was a rough-toothed rough-toothed dolphin ba yon? May hook na naka-lodge doon sa esophagus. So he communicated with an expert abroad, and ang sinabi is don't cut the nylon, look for a tube and try to insert that nylon in between the tube and try to use it as a lever to free that hook inside. We were not successful at that time, but that the technique, I was able to store that, and every time there was a case like itong giant soft-shelled turtle na parating nahuhuli sa hook, ginamit ko yung technique na yon, and every time na that technique works, parang naalala ko yung time na Leo was on the phone consulting the vet, and that particular information and technique being shared, it can save a lot of lives of this animal. So pag natanggal mo na, parang yung feel mo yung pagkawagi ng pagiging isang veterinaryo na Pinoy, di ba?
Yeah. So tingin ko yung, I think one of the best, apart from the successes, one of the best things that we have is that we have this network na, alam mo yun, it's really important, I think, na to have turfing and to be open to new ideas, learn, important talaga yun. And then, also, hindi ka dapat balat sibuyas sa trabaho. Kasi there will be times when you will get, when you will have, when you talk about cases, it's really important to be open to criticism, but also for that criticism to also help you. Hello, Doc Lisa Mayer.
Yes, hello, Doc. Fresh from ground zero.
Oh my God! Hey, did you go to Tagum? Did you go to Tagum?
Hindi pa. Galing ako ng Donmar.
Okay, kasi basta, yeah. ASF, yay! Kaloka!
Oo, sobra.
So, Doc, when we entered, we're talking about the best part of practicing wildlife. Practicing in wildlife. Kung gusto mo na mag-contribute, pwede. Kanina nandito si Gideon He had to leave for a bit. Leon, dyan ka na ba? Ole. Okay, so si Doc Lee.
Malangoy pa si
Doc Lee.
Yes.
Ayan, you're there! Yay!
Yeah.
We're talking about the best part of wildlife med. What's the best part of wildlife? Ayan. Choppy, bro. Later ka na ulit. Doc May, yun na.
Ako, the best part of wildlife.
Saka, i-mute kita kasi.
Choppy na naman.
Choppy ka.
O, diba?
Okay, May muna, Doc May.
Actually, the best part of wildlife, with all honesty, mas nakakababae ka eh. Totoo yan. And then, kagaya nga nung sinasabi ko sa mga students pag ini-invite ako ng mga lectures, mga vet students natin, mga VETC, alam nyo ba na when you're into wildlife, you forget that you're just a normal cat and dog doctor. Diba? Parang mas upgraded ka. And then para bang yung feeling mo na, with all honesty, parang no holds barred ba to? Real talk lang to?
Real talk, syempre. Safe space to.
Oo naman. Kasi diba naman, yun yung naisip mo na, kakaiba ka, you're amazing. Yung mga ganyan. Totoo naman, honest na comment ko lang. And then mas parang, kunyari lang just to have an example, si Doc Lisa nag-wildlife yan. Ha, talaga Doc? Parang biglang ganun agad. Parang naiiba agad yung level mo. Or syempre naman, with regards to small animal na practice natin, syempre, for us, nagiging first love kaya natin yan. Nandyan talaga yan siya. Pero to be more competitive, ang ganon, para mas upgraded ka, iba rin yung dating na nag-wildlife. Especially for me, nung na-introduce niyo, Doc, yung marine mammal sa akin, mas na-appreciate ko kasi Davao Occidental is a coastal province. We have 200 plus kilometers na coastline, marami tayong marine mammals dito, and everything. So mas na-appreciate ko lalo yung naging into wildlife ako talaga.
Yay, thanks, Doc. Game ka na, Leo. Nagda-drive pa rin eh. Okay. Kaya mo na. Marami kaming ganyan, mga double body. Okay ka na, Le?
Okay na ba signal ko? Okay na?
Oh, okay na. Tapos ka sa Doc. We're talking about the best part of the practice.
Yeah, yun. So, sa akin siguro yung syempre currently I'm working with marine mammals. Tapos, I think normal naman talaga na every time na meron kang animal or
wala si Doc.
Wala ka na, Doc.
Mamaya na lang pag balik ko sa office.
Okay, go. Sige. I-mute kita. Check. Okay, let's look at the next part. Ito na naman ako. Hindi ko alam kung alin button mo. Ayan. Again, salamat kay Chris Torno. First part.
Okay, so what is the worst part of wild animal practice? The worst part of wild animal practice, I guess, is when you have to decide when you need to put down an animal, and I guess it's not just exclusive for wild animal practice. It probably gives the same heartache as when you would put down a pet dog or a cat. But what makes it more difficult for me, at least for me, is that sometimes we deal with animals that are rare or even endangered, and you have to put them down for humane purposes, for purposes of its welfare. And it's not just that attachment with the animal that makes it really difficult to make that decision. It's also the fact that they represent very few individuals out there.
Number two, what's the best part of it? And for me, it's like working with breathtaking animals and realizing that I get to live my childhood dreams every day. It's just phenomenal.
And the worst part is knowing that you have somehow contributed to the animals getting sick or dying. I think this happens quite a lot as a new vet because it can be something as simple as not knowing enough, not having enough experience to do the right thing as quickly as possible, and not recognizing the symptoms, and yeah, things like that. And sometimes it may not be even our direct contribution, but more on knowing how human desires have actually um, contributed to the habitat fragmentations of these animals, and even poaching and uh, wildlife pet threats, things like this.
The worst part of wildlife practice is, I guess, the opposite of the best part. When you rescue, you treat and rehab an animal, and you did all you could, the best you could, but you couldn't save the animal. I think that's the worst part of this practice.
What is the worst part of wild animal practice? The worst part is I must treat the animal from illegal wildlife trade, which come to the hospital with the problem from wrong management, wrong food, and wrong habitat.
Okay. Sino gusto mauna? Worst part. You'll say,
So the worst part is, we since we've been dealing with different type of wild endemic wildlife, and there are certain wildlife that we haven't been able to break through. For example, an infant dugong. You see all our wildlife colleagues that they have devoted their time and effort, napupuyat na sila in trying to save this dugong, tapos mamatay din sa end. Even if it's not me personally in that area, but in our network, you see how hard they really put their time and effort, pati emotions nila nandun, tapos in the end, mamatay na. Parang gusto mong magsabi ng condolence na parang ang sama-sama ng feeling. And then, the pangolins also that are being illegally traded here in the city. And then, gusto mo padala kagad doon, pero yung proseso, hindi pa rin nagbabago. Kailangan pa rin silang i-keep doon for I don't know what reason. Na parang meron sanang magagawang paraan, pero hindi pa rin natin change. So, yun yung, I think, worst sa naisip ko ngayon.
Doc Lisa.
Parang, oo nga. Nakarelate ako dun sa parang gusto mong magsabi ng ng condolence. The worst part for me is yung bang, yun sa, kagaya ng na-mention din, yung sa rescue, tapos pag mga injured na sila, parang no matter how much you try, andun na yun eh. Yung iba hindi na nakaka-survive, and then after survival naman, hindi natin alam kung saan sila ilalagay, di ba? Kasi may mga rescue centers din naman na, sad to say, minsan nagsasabi na wala na tayong lalagyan yan, ang maintenance and everything, kaya nga nagbaback into the wild tayo to free all those mga enclosures, mga tipong ganon, para may malagyan din tayo ng iba. Kasi ibabalik naman natin sila sa natural environment. And another thing for the worst part, parang dami naman ang worst part to. As I look into those enclosures, yung nararamdaman mo ba na parang dapat wala ka dito eh. Dapat nasa wild ka, pero wala naman tayong magagawa. Yung mga ganon. Pero all in all, we just need to try what we can. Kasi hindi naman tayo yung tipong nagmamagaling. And then sometimes kahit naman na parang nagko-consult ka rin, humihingi ka ng guidance or parang advices sa mga kapwa natin veterinaryo, hanggang ganun lang talaga. So hindi naman tayo superwoman para tipong magawa natin gustong gagawin natin. Lalo na mayroon tayong there are a lot of issues that I really experience, especially I also deal with political issues, yung mga tipong ganun. So anyway, hanggang ganun lang talaga, but we have to try our best.
Before we go to Monica, worst part daw for Chris, nakaspido sa batuhan. O sa bahura, di ba?
Oo, duminon.
Oh gosh. Worst part, makita si Cristor na naka-speedos na pula. Monica?
Worst part of the practice, I think same lang din yung heartache of losing an animal. And also, yung rescues na especially yung mga bata pa, like the juveniles, they come in because time na ng pagputol ng sugarcane kasi maraming sugarcane dito sa Negros. So we always get rescues that are juvenile leopard cats, juvenile grass owls. Minsan nga puno-puno na yung rescue center, yung mga cages namin for the rescues na tipong hindi na namin alam kung saan sila ilagay. But then again, they survive. If not, syempre yun. Pero if they survive, ma-release din yun. So parang medyo maraming heartaches when it comes to wildlife practice. Pero syempre, minsan may isip mo rin na kahit naman sa anong practice, kahit sa anong meron talaga.
Yeah. I remember having to take care of several leopard cats that were rescued. So some kids brought some leopard cats to us, and then yun nga, feline panleukopenia, you have to treat them. And it was successful, no, in a way, because they survived that phase. They became adults, and then we just lose them like that, no. Parang at that time, wala pang the vaccines were modified life. We couldn't get killed vaccines for panleukopenia. And I was afraid that the cats got infected prior, and then we challenged it again, you know. So we lost 4 cats that day. And I remember talking on the phone with William Oliver. No? He's like, I know si Nielsen already mentioned William. William was the one who hired me for Negros Forest Park. And I was talking on the phone with him, crying, no? Very unprofessional. Because I love these cats and they died. And I felt so useless. And then, out of the blue, he told me, it happens. It happens. Then he began to tell me a story of one of his favorite, because he's a mammalogist and he worked with Gerald Durrell. If you Google Gerald Durrell, he's the first guy who ever did conservation breeding. And so my boss William worked at Gerald Durrell's place, and he described how he cried while holding the last hoofstock or the last animal that died in the herd. And it was his favorite animal. And then parang after he told me that, si William medyo macho kasi yan eh. He will not admit to crying or ganyan, but it was like a big deal for him to tell me that because he wanted to console me because it happened to me. Parang ganun. Worse talaga mamatayan. Like, after having done everything, I mean, I slept in the clinic, sleeping bag ako, ganyan. They were they had fever. I had to put them like on my chest, put the sleeping bag over kasi wala kaming enough heat. And yun, parang anak mo, ganon. That's one of the worst things. But another worst thing is having to deal with a faulty system. That allows wildlife traffic, that allows yung pagkasira ng kagubatan, yung mga ganon. Kasi, I mean, if you're in this field, you slowly, even if you don't read about it, you slowly realize the root cause of all this. And that there is another solution to that root cause. Tapos hindi siya magawa ng paraan. Or there are people who have the power not to do their job. Yung ganon, yun sa tingin ko, for me, it's like the worst thing ever. Yun yung sabi na ako, that's the worst thing ever. And being helpless, like in the face of that reality. Kasi like, for instance, with Doc Leo, may Marine Mammal Stranding Network, and it's a successful network. But why do we have to rescue so many animals? Because there's dynamite blast fishing, there's this, and all of those things that contribute to them having to be rescued or to them having to be endangered. Like, for me, that's like the worst. Yun lang. Next! Sorry. Magdi-DJ na ulit ako. May comments from students so far. Okay, mahiya. Safe space again. Uy, guys, magtatawag ako. Gio! Dapat pala yung naka-off cam. Jimuel de Matera. Tingnan natin kung tulog eh. Jimuel, are you there? Any comments?
Wala akong maisip. Lang.
Well, it's probably sleeping. Carlo Alburo.
Okay, be.
Pag walang nagtanong, kami nagtatanong.
Ay, Jimuel, buhay! Yay! May comment ka? I saw... Yes. Go!
Mamaya.
Sige, go. Okay. Deng, sabi ni Deng, is there a demand for wildlife vets in the Philippines? Napatawa si Monica. Si Nielsen muna, siya yung nasa private practicing.
For me, it depends on if you want to go in wildlife. It's like your priority is not getting rich. It's just sustaining your, your living, your normal living. For me, it's a plus that I can still practice wildlife. My bread and butter is still here in the hospital treating domestic animals. Um, I'm lucky that we have the niche for treating um, exotic pets. Pero every time I get to go and treat wildlife and go out in the wild, parang yun yung distressing activity ko. But is there a demand? I think there is very little demand. Pero when you're not looking for them, ang daming gustong mag-apply. But when you're looking for them, those who wants to go into wildlife, ang hirap, ang hirap that you have to convert somebody who's into small animal practice to go to wildlife na kailangan ng konting brainwashing sa aming mga wildlife practice. Kinakuhanin mo na yan. It's going to be something like a new experience. So, like I'm sure every time Fefi was looking for a new vet, parang magtatanong sa atin si William na, do you know anyone, ganyan. Tapos pag may napili siya, syempre tayo yung isa sa mga magre-recommend, that guy is good, he has potentials. Sabay may konting pangbubuyo kasi karamihan ng magpupunta ng wildlife, parang merong hesitation because of course you'll be brought out from the city and be brought to a more remote area. Sa una, parang very exciting, di ba? Whether mapunta ka for example, El Nido, ma-hire ka as a environmental officer, vet ka. Parang gusto mo, sige. Pero pag nakailang buwan ka na doon, oh my God, even though this is paradise, half of your emotions parang, wow. Nakakalungkot naman dito pagdating ng alas 6. Parang nakakalungkot na. So you really have to like to be practicing wildlife, and yung demand parang hindi ganun kadami. Siguro zoo practice, pero konti lang din sila eh.
Konti lang yung zoo na willing mag-take in ng vet.
Yeah.
Bayad ng tama at hindi ka abusuhin.
Yun yung downside sa Philippines eh. So, for instance, a lot of yung mga may batchmates ako, like, they go abroad. So, nandun sila sa Singapore, nandun sila sa Dubai. So,
nandun yung demand.
Nandun yung demand. Or hindi. Actually, there's a demand here if you actually, if the owners of these zoos actually think about their animals, of these private zoos, if they actually think about their animals, then there should be a demand, no, in terms of welfare and all of that. No? But they don't.
Kasi ayaw nila magpasahod ng tama.
Yun yung bottom line. Kasi kahit yung keepers nila, mababa rin yung sahod nila sa keepers. And then a lot of the demand comes from, let's say, conservation facilities that also cannot afford to have like full-time vets. Yes. So they end up like, doing consults also. Ayun. Which is actually like, I for sure, and we talked about this, Nielsen, for a bit also, no, like the dilemma, of treating animals from the wildlife trade, for instance. It's a big thing for me, and like when you have a responsibility to treat the animal, but then what do you do? Diba? it's actually a moral question. Like, it's ganon. And I know like Niels and I talked about this a lot of times, and you just have to choose. Yun din yung conversation ko with another private practitioner who ends up, having to treat wildlife. So, kasi ngayon, mahirap din. And I'm sure like Doc Lisa can also attest to having had that kind of experience.
Sobra. Mahirap magpakain ng wildlife.
No, yun din. Akala nila kasi pag nag-zoo sila, marami na silang pera. Puro gastos kaya yun. Ang gastos.
Tapos pag ginagawa mo sila lang ng listing nung dapat na ipakain, even all the supplements and anything, parang hello, i-disregard lahat yun. Kasi meron din silang sariling listahan na makakasave. Pero nakakasave nga, nako-compromise naman yung health nila. Ganun din.
In the long run, yeah. And at the end of the day, a lot of these zoos, they don't think about the welfare of they don't think that keeping their animals healthy is the way to go,
Yeah. They just count the number of entrance tickets.
Yeah, exactly. Parang nangyari sa Bunawan, ganyan. My goodness. Oo, yun nga. So, we have chats here. Sorry din. Sabi ni Chris Torno, mabuti na lang meron daw siyang Stark Industries. Yeah, feeling mo. Okay, then sabi niya, I was gonna ask about zoo animal medicine here in the Philippines. Yeah. Yun nga, that's a reality. And I mean, even zoo vets, no, yun din, medyo hindi siya ganun ka, you won't live like a king. Sabi ni Enif, in your experiences, are the local or indigents near the protected areas knowledgeable enough and somehow have the responsibility for wildlife management? Any thoughts on IP's reserve's role in wildlife conservation? Who wants to answer? Si Lisa. Nagka-Davao yan eh.
Yun nga eh. We have to deal a lot of indigenous peoples. And then sabi nga nila sila daw may-ari ng lahat-lahat sa mundo. Pero I really doubt it. Kasi dito naman, we have more than, sabi natin, mga 30,000 hectares of IP lands. Meron namang mga privately titled lands na rin. Ang nangyayari dito, when it comes to wildlife management, wildlife laws and everything, pag binibili na kasi yung rights ng lupa nila, nawawala lahat yan. In reality, I'm really talking on the grassroots level kasi napifield ako eh. Andun, ang daming wild animals dito na kusang lumalayo, kusang nawawala. Yung, di ba yung sa Bohol, marami rin ganun dito. Pero nawawala sila eh. Nawawala, dwindling, lumalayo kasi nakiklear siya. Land conversion, everything, plus ang IPs naman natin, medyo nalalayo sila sa ganong parlance or sa ganong paset, all because they deal much on the livelihood. So nagki-clearing tayo, lumilipad sila, nawawala sila yung mga ilog natin, di ba? Supposed to be, doon umiinom si baboy damo, si deers, nawawala na, mga ganun. Very, for me, kasi nakikita ko parang it's so disgusting, nakakasad siya, pero wala tayong magagawa dahil land conversion ang napakalaking kalaban talaga natin. Development has bad sides. Rural development has bad sides. Yun siya, naapektuhan. Tapos naman, pag binabagyo, nililindol, sabi nila, gumaganti ng kinaiya or gumaganti na daw si Mother Nature. Ano naman ang ginagawa natin kay Mother Nature, di ba? Other things like that.
Nielsen.
Chris has an opinion.
Okay, go Chris.
Ganito kasi, no? I mean, when it comes to understanding ng IPs natin about conservation actually is something, it's a man-made concept. And so is animal welfare. Well, probably the reason why our IPs don't have it It's because there has no need to, because their lifestyle is 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 I'd say not hindi naman not harmful, but they're one with the environment. And if you see it in IPs, not just in the Philippines, all over the world, wherein yung lifestyle kasi nila is in tune with nature. Ang nangyari kasi with the modernization of man, naging mechanized lahat. Now you have to have conservation then. Pero yun nga, kasi iniisip natin kasi there are several levels of conservation. Kasi sa atin, dahil veterinarians, we are thinking along the lines of how we can help on an organismic level. Kasi organisms ang inaano natin eh. We are treating individuals or maybe flocks or certain group. Pero ang IPs kasi, hindi kasi sila damaging sa habitats. And that is more critical. And when we're talking about conservation, actually, mas importante pa yung more than we can actually treat individuals, much importante pa yung habitat hindi na destroy. I guess the point I'm driving at is that probably the reason why this kinds of thinking na meron tayo ngayon about conservation is not inculcated sa mga IPs natin is because there was never really a need for them to think that. Yun lang ang opinion ko, no?
Yeah. You do have a point there because the need for conservation should be inculcated in the people who live in the cities. Kasi yung mga taga-syudad, sila yung nagkakamtam ng lupa. Sila yung nag-offer ng money to IPs. Sila yun eh. Hindi naman yung taga-bundok eh. And I think like for PEFI, like for Philippine Eagle Foundation, they work with some of the IPs already to help retain that kind of mentality that they used to have. Kasi even IPs are an endangered lot, Our IPs are actually disappearing. Their languages are endangered. So, yun.
I used to consult for a mining company na hindi ko nasasabihin kung ano. So, hindi naman veterinaryong papel ko doon, ano? They hired me as a wildlife biologist. I was doing wildlife surveys and all that thing. So, pag gumagawa ako ng transect, lagi ako nakakita ng mga katutubo na naguhukay. Siguro, sabi ko, bakit kaya ito yung site na pinili ng mining company na to? So, I asked yung geodetic engineer. Yun yung mga engineers na they know where to find gold or copper. Tapos, siyempre, pinaulanan ako ng jargon, hindi ko naman naiintindihan, hindi naman ako engineer. Tapos sabi ko, hindi niyo pala alam kung saan. Sabi hindi, it's still a hit or miss. So sabi ko, after we cut all these trees, hit or miss siya. Ngayon na-realize ko na, ang indicator pala nila ng precious metals ay yung IP mismo. Kasi yung IP, alam na nila yun, passed on na yun from generation to generation, ng hukay-hukay lang, hukay-hukay. It's slow, pero I guess yun yung rate na kayang mag-recover nung habitat. Pero pag halimbawa mechanized na siya, may tractors ka and bulldozers, hindi kayang mag-recover ng habitat from that rapid loss. So, yun yung problem. I mean, I'm not saying anti-mining or that. It's just that it's a balancing act. Lalo na ngayon na lahat ng tao gusto ng bagong iPhone. Kailangan magma-mining for that. It's just, sad reality na meron ngayon. Yeah, yun lang.
Thank you. Nagsalita ka rin. Nielsen, you wanted to say something?
For me, yeah, for me, I've seen some good stories. Unfortunately, it wasn't sustained. If you remember Enteng used to work with who's this the one with the olivaceous with what's his name? He passed away already. Si Daniel Bennett. Si Enteng is a local who worked closely with Daniel Bennett, and then he became forest warden in Polillo Islands. So pag nakita mo na they're very much into it, parang if you see a local or an indigent person who's protecting their own indigenous wildlife. Parang ang sarap-sarap tignan, ano? But in reality, hindi siya ganun ka-simple na masustain yung idealism because karamihan ng mga indigenous people ay na-exploit. If you look at it historically, how come there was still balance before yung mga tao nagkaroon ng interest sa forest, nagkaroon ng interest sa wildlife, parang may balance. They would only use something in the forest, in the wild, for sustainability. Some of it is part of their culture, there's respect. Pero once na nasira na yung kanilang kultura, then it all collapses. Na pwede mo nang utusan itong indigent people na mag-hunt. Just like in Palawan. Sino ba yung kumukuha ng mga red-vented kakatu? Sino ba yung kumukuha ng mga Palawan hill miners? 'Di ba yung mga tagbanwas din? Sila yung ginagawang tracker para makuha yung mga endangered species na yan. So, yun ang nakakalungkot na nasisira yung culture nila dahil nasisilaw sila sa pera.
Yeah, it's true.
Pag nahuli, sila makukulong pero sino yung behind that? Hindi lumalabas yung pangalan kung sino ang nag-utos sa kanila para ipakuha yung mga wildlife na yan. Di ba?
Monica, any thoughts?
When it comes here sa Negros, locals, we're also working with the locals near the North Negros National Park, and some of them have had jobs that are, enabling them to get money, not because of having to poach or to illegally catch these animals, but to do yung tourism activities for the what do you call this, the natural park. So I think responsibilities for wildlife management. I mean, the NFEFI had like long history of supporting and educating these locals way back. So we're establishing that. Ang pinoproblema ko lang ngayon is now there's no tourists. There's no, because of the pandemic, right? So the problem is now paano kung these animals are threatened again because of these people losing their jobs because of the pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Wait lang, medyo heated yung aming chat ni Mixet. Okay. I-share ko yung continuation ng video. Again, salamat kay Chris Carno.
Okay. What skills do you have to acquire for the practice outside of those that you learn in vet school? I don't know now how much is being taught in vet school recently in the different universities in the Philippines, but I would say that rarely do we have graduates who are well versed with imaging because they're really very expensive equipment, and rarely do you find schools in the Philippines that actually give intensive training for their undergraduates to do this. But these are very important things: ultrasound, endoscopy, X-ray. If you don't have the resources in the university, you can go somewhere else, spend time, even in domestic animals that use this, horse vets, they use a lot of this. Be familiar with the technique, be familiar with the machines that are available. These are very important. But if you're talking about skills that are non-veterinary, I'd say, well, in my case, because I was a student journalist, writing skills, very important. Because if, for example, you need to be in research, or you want to, get involved with, with contributing to knowledge of wildlife medicine, yeah, writing skills is a plus. Speaking to, if you want to talk about it in conferences, but there are non-medical skills that revolve around the practice that you want to be in. Like, for example, if you want to be in aquatic animal medicine, it's good if you have some skills in water quality, or some even theoretical knowledge about it, because they can help you a lot in solving disease-related problems in the aquarium. And also, if you want to be involved with rescues in aquatic animals, good swimming skills. These are non-medical skills that are actually very important. Scuba. And in some cases, if you know how to drive boats, or at least vehicles that are actually jointed, and I've had that skill trained in Florida when I was driving trucks that had boats. So I had to drag boats to manatee rescue sites. And yeah, skills that, non-medical skills that you need to learn to actually be more effective as a veterinarian. Although they're non-medical skills, but still they're skills, and they will help you a lot. It says here, we are now on our 10th month of online classes. Do you have any suggestions on how we can hone our skills given the current situation? Well, I'd say when I was your age, we didn't have that wealth of information or quick access to literature. And now you have it at the tip of your fingers. You click information and they just come in. I know this can be, boring or sometimes overwhelming because, we are in a pandemic situation. You're locked inside your houses. But you know what? Spend this time to learn, to master the general templates of veterinary medicine. Some veterinarians are intimidated to, perform a necropsy on a dolphin just because it's shaped differently. But the truth is, they follow the same general principles of morphology. The lungs is still the lungs, the heart is still the heart. They still serve the same purposes, although they've adapted some modifications anatomically and physiologically to meet, the demands of their different environment. But like the general templates of the pathophysiologic mechanisms of edema is still edema. The causes, the consequences are still the same. Hemorrhage, loss of blood will give you the same, the flow chart is the same for hemorrhage. You all, go into blood loss, either anemia or shock. The point I'm driving at is, when you master the basic templates of pathology, medicine, and surgery, you will use the same thing in wild animals. Maybe not exactly the same, maybe similar, maybe some slight modifications, but in the end, your veterinary skills, don't think that you would want to skip your techniques in domestic animals because you want to do wildlife anyway. But no, if you actually perfect the skills that you are being taught in the university, you can modify these techniques. You can actually use the same techniques, but get familiar with this and superimpose this on your non-domestic specimens. You will you won't get you won't be wrong essentially. So yeah, just amass yourself with knowledge right now because you have online resources, and then start, you know you have your YouTube channels. You can get a lot of information on these kinds of things, and no, start conversing with experts in the field, and then start looking for probable possible internships or externships that may be available as soon as this pandemic is done. You've already laid your groundwork. So yeah, start looking for start looking for potential internships, and once this is all over, which I think it will be, you just you're just ready to go out there because you're prepared to go out once this is done.
Okay, stop muna tayo doon. Ganyan. Okay. Please. If you have questions, mga students, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or chat. So the question was, how do we hone our skills? And then given this pandemic, kasi I don't know if everyone knows, if all the vets know, everyone, including these clinicians, they're not allowed to do face-to-face learning. So, lahat ng aming duty ay online. Yun. I think Chris has, ginagawa na naman ng ibang mga estudyante yun. And I think, dalawa yung screen ni Erin. Okay. So, yun. May isa pa, wait lang, nawala kasi yung tuloy ko yung, nawala siya. How important is wildlife medicine? Mamaya itutuloy natin yung video mamaya. Pero yun nga, even according to Doc Che, if she's still here, you can use this time to hone your observation skills. And it's something that's very, very important in the practice. Not just wildlife practice, but veterinary practice. There are a lot of things we kind of miss sometimes because we hone in on, like, when a case is presented, bloody siya, for instance, we only concentrate on the trauma, but we fail to look at other parts of the case because yun yung parang glaring factor, no? So like for me, for instance, when I do necropsy, if there's like a glaring thing there, let's say, prolapse, pero dumating sa akin, carcass na, I take note of the prolapse, but I don't go to it first thing. You still do your thing, do it systematically from head to tail or whatever system you apply when doing the necropsy, and then you do that. You don't go immediately there because you tend to spend too much time in that place or in that concern, and you will end up missing the more important things. So things like that. Nielsen. Si Nielsen tumatanggap ng volunteer. Di ba?
Yeah. Well, it started because my son, he's studying vet also after graduating from another course. And parang there's a small group na alam mo naman na hindi naman sila exposed they're not exposed to the virus. And here in my practice in BGC, we house our staff. So hindi sila sumasakay ng mga public transport. So alam mo, controlled yung environment. Plus our clients, they don't go inside the hospital facility. It's kind of weird kasi parang naabutan tayo ng ganitong pandemic, but teaching and learning doesn't have to stop there. So you can still learn. Parang yung practical ma-experience pa rin. Especially here in veteran practice, the fort, kasi maraming nagdadala dito ng mga exotics, meron din mga rescued. Recently there has been a lot of scaps owls na mga fledglings, I don't know bakit ang dami-dami na lumalabas sa mga social media na rescue na hulog sa nest. So dito yan sa Dasmariñas Village, sa Forbes Park, ang dami na doong mga wildlife na that's coexisting in an environment where majority are educated. Na bakit doon sa maliit na community na yon, it's very rich in wildlife. There are pythons, there are of course the introduced very invasive squirrels nandun. So ang daming na nakikita namin, and we take them in pro bono as long as it's wildlife. So dito yung mga students na interested, siguro we can take in a few students who wants to experience hands-on for wildlife. Especially, sabi ko nga kay Doc M is sana magkaroon tayo ng mga designated wildlife what's called mga rescuers na who has really, these are individual people who has good hands. They might not be vets, pero in comparison of trying to nurse an infant, parang ang galing-galing nila. Parang sa Australia, parang what they call foster wildlife parents, na we know na hindi nila i-keep yung animal. Ang role lang nila talaga is to nurse these animals and minimize the imprinting. Maraming ganon, kaya lang hindi pa natin na-exploit yung ganong possibility. And when you have a busy practice, minsan yun yung kulang namin, and sometimes the volunteers will have the chance to monitor those orphan wildlife.
Pwede ka bang kontakin ng estudyante?
Pwede.
Ayan kita nyo yung email address. Wilson, salita ka. Ayun! Yeah! Not
Pwede.
I am Jon Snow. Remember? Okay? Bawal kasi ng face-to-face. Okay, let's go to the last question. No? The last question is, I think, significant in light of this current pandemic. And then,
So vet school has given me a fantastic foundation in diagnosis, treatment of disease in animals. However, I probably learnt the most after vet school. I learnt that treating wildlife is a multidisciplinary job. It's not something that vets can do on their own. They really need to understand that they are part of a wider team of biologists and ecologists, and if they really want to do the best for wildlife, they need to understand how they can contribute, and also make sure they have a good network of other experts around them to ensure that not only do they do the best for the individual in which they're presented with, but also the species and the environment in which that animal is going to live.
What skill did you have to acquire for the practice outside of those that you learned in vet school? So many.
wait guys, mali pala. Ayusin ko yung video. I'll move it forward. Wait lang ah. Nasaan yan? Lag. Pasensya na. Okay. Try. Try again. Pasensya. Okay. Tama ba yung sinasabi niya?
Dok, wala pong sound.
Wala.
Important role to be the sentinels of the next pandemic.
Ay na, Dok.
In light of this current pandemic, I think needless to say, while I feel is very, very important, we as wildlife veterinarians are basically sentinels of the next pandemic. And this pandemic, unfortunately, will just be more frequent because of the increasing human populations and the increasing pressure on the wildlife habitats. So human-wildlife conflicts and the diseases are just going to happen more often. And I think it is a privilege that we are given the task of such an important role to be the sentinels of the next pandemic.
I feel the wildlife field is ever more important in light of the current pandemic. We know that the pandemic has been caused by a crossover of viruses existing in wildlife species to humans, and we can be pretty certain that that is because of human encroachment on wildlife habitat and our constant pushing of wildlife to margins, our mistreatment of wildlife. And as veterinarians, we need to be able to bridge the gap, understand both the ecology, disease ecology, and ecology of the animals that we're treating, and also being able to explain that and work together with colleagues in human medicine to better mitigate that risk.
Okay, thank you for that. Galing ni Nielsen, no? Siya yung gumawa ng lahat na yun. Pinasok-pasok ko lang yung sagot ng iba. So na, ayan. Ayan, session. Ang hirap mag-DJ, guys. Okay, with that, no, parang, like para sa akin naman, yung trabaho ng veterinaryo talaga, importante sa lahat ng bagay, sa lahat ng field. Kaya parati kong inuulit sa estudyante at sa ibang mga veterinar. Kailangan mag-English. So, that's why I always repeat it to students and to other veterinarians that we need to do our jobs well. You know, if I work in wildlife, I need to be a good wildlife vet. If I work in wildlife conservation, then I need to do a good job in conservation. If you're a poultry practitioner, man, do your job well. You know, if you need to screen for diseases, screen for diseases. If you need to cull pigs, cull them. Kasi like apart from being, you know, we're not sentinels of economics. We're not sentinels of people. We're sentinels of diseases. And I think we should all keep our eye on the ball. Yung ball na yon, we don't drop it. Because this is what happens. ASF enters the country because we did not do our jobs well. COVID-19 came into the country because the government did not listen properly to science. Yeah. And they didn't do their job well. Diba? So it's really important for us to have that in mind, whatever practice we have. So it, like that's why when a couple of students asked to become part of wildlife rotation, ininundate nyo ako. Uh, it doesn't mean I don't want to take you in. It just, like, I was a bit, paano ba? I mean, if you really want to pursue the rotation or the specialization that you look, that you imagine yourself to be in a couple of years, then do it. Do it. Find a way to do it. But when you're there, I hope you don't forget to do it well. The best that you can. Because this is what happens, the Philippines that we are now is what happens when we don't do our jobs well. So, since you're the future vets, I'm really sorry for, for not having these face-to-face sessions with you, not being able to teach you, yung describe to you, for instance, how it is, what inserting a needle in a snake's tail is, or feels like, so that you can get to the blood. I'm really sorry, but at the end of the day, there is still much to be done and there's still much to be learned. Even us, we learn. I mean, Monica, she learned so much. And she, she's 1 year on the job and she's doing so well. Si Leo also and me, we're constantly learning. Everyone does. No? So it's not the end of the world that you can go face to face. But ayun nga, at the end of the day, we have to think about that. Kasi baliwala na nag-face to face kayo and then you botch the job. You don't check for certificates of wildlife ownership when you're working in a clinic dealing with an exotic that entered the country illegally. Mga ganun. Leo, your turn. Anong impact ng wildlife vet sa current situation natin? And don't say Aus Duterte. Mag-off cam ako.
Ito muna.
Nandito ako sa Davao, joke.
Wait, yan mo, Doc Lisa, yan mo yung volume ng speaker mo para hindi tayo marinig.
Tatlo lang kami dito sa office ngayon.
Sige. Siguro ko muna kasi na nakikinig ako while nung nagda-dive nga ako. Ko muna yung sa maybe I would like to share yung frustrating part sa job, sa practice. Kasi right now nga, di ba, the reason why I really like my current job is because I'm also involved, apart from doing working with dolphins here, I'm also helping contributing something bigger. So we have the M already mentioned about the Philippine Marine Mammal Study Network, and our contribution there is, I think, is really important because we are actually helping other vets to be able to help stranded dolphins. And we teach not only vets but also first responders on what to do whenever there's a dolphin na nag-strand. And what's frustrating is some groups would tell people or would teach people to do otherwise, ano hindi tama. Like they say, pag may nakita kang stranded dolphin, push it back to the sea, keep on pushing hanggang sa it will swim away, which is very frustrating kasi nga the reason why these animals strand is because they are sick. And if you keep on pushing them, it's like put yourself in the situation, ikaw pumunta ka ng hospital, and then the doctor tells you na you're not sick, umalis ka rito, which I personally experienced when I was still a student sa Los Baños. Pumunta ako ng infirmary, naglakad ako papunta sa taas kasi that was a weekend, walang jeep. Pumunta ng infirmary, and then the doctor told me na wala kang sakit, you can go home. So sabi ko, hindi, may sakit ako. Hindi, wala kang sakit, pahinga ka lang sa bahay. So I ended up going to LBDH yata yun, o LBDH, And doon ako na-confine, and na-confine ako for like 5 days yata. So it's like that. It's like that. So there are NGOs and mga private, individuals and experts, because may nakita sila sa YouTube, may nakita sila sa idol nila, may nakita sila sa documentary, nagmamagaling na, and sometimes ang nakainis pa is sometimes they would challenge the people whom you already trained. And you know that these people already knows what they're doing, and that yet they are still challenging these people, and they are dropping names. Keso si ganito, si ganyan, we will report to whatever, ganyan. Mali naman sila. So I guess in my case, yun ang pinaka frustrating. They would claim that they are experts on marine mammal stranding, and they are training people, and yet pag may stranding, you don't see them. Like, nasan sila? Pero pag nag-claim na expert, kami yung expert, parang ganun. And for me, it's parang nakakainis lang. And doon naman sa last, ano nga ba yung question, M? Yung sa significance ng pagiging wildlife vet. I think na-mention na ni, sino ba nga ba yun? May nag-mention na about yung sa COVID. Ang sabi nga if we are to believe na nanggaling nga talaga sa bats yung ang COVID, and then meron ding ASF, and then meron ding mga hendra na may outbreak somewhere sa I think sa Southeast Asia.
Yeah, in
and
China.
These are China ba?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tapos,
everything comes from there, guys.
Yeah, so alam nyo, these are diseases that are being transmitted from wild animals. And sino ba yung mga possible na pwedeng makapag-detect nito kaagad? And sino ba ang mas nakakaalam about these animals? Siyempre, these are the wildlife veterinarians. So unfortunately, yung practice dito sa Philippines is not as ano ba? Hindi ganun kadami ang opportunity to really practice, but we actually need more wildlife veterinarians all around the country. Narinig ko kanina, yun nga sabi, if you want to practice wildlife, especially if kakagraduate nyo lang, you do it not because, I think si Doc Nielsen yata nagsabi nyo, you do it not because of the money, but because of the experience of the practice. Like, when I was at Bacolod, kung nasan si Monica, God, may times na kumakain ako isang soup at saka sabaw lang para lang maka-survive kasi na short sa budget, and I have to pay apartment and rent, etc. etc. So yeah, hindi talaga siya for someone if you're really looking at earning big kaagad. It's not. But if there are opportunities for you, if you are really interested, if you are opportunities to work in a wildlife practice, and especially I think it's the best time to do it is while you are young, wala pa kayong family, then I would say go for it, as long as syempre naman yung offer would be able to sustain you to live comfortably. Yeah, I think that would be my advice on that. Yun lang.
Salamat! Now, overtime na tayo. I'm gonna... Kailangan meron tayong awarding ng certificates eh. Kunya.
May ceremony pa.
Oo, meron. Hindi, papakita ko lang, diba? Kailangan mo ako. I hate these things, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Siyempre, Stephanie Sanderson. Babasahin ko ba? Sige, babasahin ko. Okay. Tanggalin natin. Okay. For the invaluable service and active participation as resource speaker during the VETC 176 webinar series held from 2 to 12 March 2021, given this 11th day of March 2021 at the CVM, University of the Philippines, Los Baños. Signed by me and Dr. Acorda. Yay! Next! To Chawapan. Bahala na kayo magbasa niyan. Ang hirap kasi. Sandy Ling Chu. Doc Ana Lascano, Gideon, Doc Che, Chris Torno, Nielsen, Leo, Monica, Pia, si Dr. Melodia Magno, hindi dumating. Asan na yung sayo? Sandali, meron ka. Asan? Hindi ko nalagay sa PowerPoint. May Lisa, meron ka. Papadala ko sa'yo. So, salamat ng marami. Stop share. Ang hirap mag-DJ, Peeps.
Oo nga. Bagong career.
Oh, kinakareer ko na nga. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. You know,
Mag-iingit lang muna ako.
Oh, ano? Gagawin mo?
Ano?
Wait lang.
Oh, ano?
Sober naman.
Wait lang.
Ay, shucks. Enzo ba yan?
Ay, sandali.
Kaya mo si Enzo. Enzo, para pakita ko kay Chip. Parating niya kinakamusta eh.
Wala lang.
Diba? Doc Lea.
Nagmamayabang ka lang. Nakakaasar ka.
Wait,
Talaga naglalakad pa siya?
Wisit ka! Matiinggit ka lang eh.
Meron tayo.
Uy, see you on the 29th, Doc Leo.
Wala yan.
Ang yama mo, nakakaasar ka.
Oo. Ganda
Naiingit
naman.
na sila.
Anyway.
Oh, I just wanna say, salamat sa mga kaibigan ko. Ganon eh. Tunay kayong kaibigan. Nakakaasar ka! Ako sinangalip meeting! Wisit ka!
Ay, babalik ako dyan. Mas marami akong bibilin.
Yeah. Minumura ka na ng estudyante, Leo.
Nakakainggit.
Basta, uy, magdadala ako ng swimsuit. Pupunta ako dyan sa March 20.
Bibili ako ng ng bago.
Miss ko na daw magdagat talk, sabi nila. Ganto, salamat sa mga kaibigan ko. Kasi lahat ng mga videos ngayon, hindi ko talaga in-expect na magpapadala si Stephanie ng video niya. So, thank you for all of you. Thank you for the students I hope you didn't sleep, like you put on, nag-zoom kayo, tapos natulog lang kayo, hindi kayo naka-video. Can we take a group photo? Tatanggalin ko na yung pagka-spotlight kasi nangiingit ako.
Ay, group photo.
Dapat ang background ko rin sana yung ASF kanina, non?
Group photo ba? Sandali, papalit mo lang ako.
Okay, mag-group photo, mag-screenshot ako kung sino yung okay magpa-screenshot ay entire screen. Window. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Next, 4 pages, my goodness. 1, 2, next page. May heart pa. Thank you, Jokay Pascual. Next. Okay na. I'm taking a photo. Okay.
Nalalan na tayo.
Next. 4 kayang page. Anton, kung gusto mo. Kasi yung iba hindi naka-open camera.
Naka-open na ako.
Nag-open na, tapos na yung first page. Next page. La Fiona. Mavi. Pipicturean ko na. Salamat ng marami. Ay, ba tayo? Ayun. And last. Ang dami. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you have a nice weekend. Ganun agad. Meron pa tayo bukas. So, yeah, tomorrow is ano ba bukas? Equine?
Yes po, Doc Equine.
Okay, so equine. Nakakasar ka! Wisit ka, Lane!
Wala lang.
What a friend.
Kuya, parang siyang si Jericho Rosales na yun.
Feeling lang yun. Alam mo noon, para siyang ting-ting. So ngayon lang, Leo. Bloomer yan si Leo. Thank you so much. Thank you, Katya.
Happy birthday.
Bye, guys. Tapusin
I'll
na
see you
natin ang
here.
paghihirap natin. Buisit puwet lang ni Leo nakikita natin. I'll end this meeting. Thank you so much. Have a nice
Oy, hindi
day,
ako yan.
everyone. Hey! Ay, akala
Event
ko
yan.
ikaw. Sino yan?
Happy birthday, Doc.
Salamat.
Happy birthday,
Birthday,
Tito.
Birthday
po.
Thank you.
Ay,
Birthday,
Oh
Doc.
my God!
Birthday,
Ay,
Doc.
Birthday, Doc.
Dito
Alam
na
niyo
muna
po
yung mga
kami sa
statements mo,
OA.
no? Palalangoyin ko muna.
Nakakaasar.
Happy birthday,
Anyway, I'm
Em.
going to visit on, ano. Hey, baby!
Happy birthday, sabi ni Anon.
Salamat. Bye,
Okay.
guys.
Happy
Yung
birthday,
iba
Doc.
parang ano, are you,
Thank you po.
gusto nyo kasi ng ano, no, na pahirapan yung loob nyo. Mga mas
Nakaka-distract ito si Doc Leo. Oo, napupunta kami na Ocean Adventure. Oh, huwag ka mag-alala.
Oo. Yan na lang.
Don't worry, Peeps. I'm going there on the 29th. I'll send you pictures.
Oo. Pwede mo pahabol.
Ay, good girl.
Kaya mo ang team din.
Sama kami, Doc.
Kami din.
Si Tali.
Sama kami, Doc.
Kilala na kayo kay Leo.
Kay Doc Leo.
Ayan yung mga...
Ako na ako.
Feeling niya si Jericho Rosales na siya.
Ay, tama na.
Happy
Okay, bye-bye
birthday,
na.
Doc.
Bye.
Bye, Em.
Let's end this torture.